N-word.
Thank you, President Trump. Now I'm going to buy some mother F bleep guns.
Greetings and welcome to the Power Report on this Thursday, July 24th, 2025. I am the Letterhack, and I am glad to be here tonight with you to do some light moderation. We'll get into it. We'll have some explanations between two pals of mine, Dan from the internet and Zach of the Vanguard. I want to bring them on now. Hello, fellas. How is it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you. All right, this is Dan's show, but you know, I'm just gonna sort of like assume the role here for the time being. Thank you and apologies in case viewers weren't expecting this. Okay, Dan, Zach, you guys are here to chop it up, settle differences, hash it out, hopefully find resolutions, see eye to eye, let bygones be bygones. Who knows? Maybe not. It's okay. It is what it is. We'll get to the red meat part of this in a moment, but first, just want to let everyone know that you're both here in good faith, right?
Yeah, I have hazy recollection of where this beef began, but I'm ready to squash it. That's for sure.
We are, yeah, absolutely. And so we'll get into it. Real quick though, I just wanted to, you know, so it's not purely, you know, all, you know, disagreement or grievance or whatever. As a neutral party and a mutual friend, you know, I'm happy to do this. I'm also happy to just sit back. I don't have to be involved at all. You're both capable of being sharp critics, for example, of the Young Turks, particularly in regards to Cenk and Anna. But on the left, we often take it upon ourselves to hold those on our own side accountable when we see fit to do so. And I think it's fair to say that when we create media that, you know, essentially takes aim on a regular basis, we will risk some crossfire. And so I wonder if, you know, I'll start with you, Zach. I wonder if you agree with that. And, you know, can you briefly explain your style of media, how you approach the content that you make? And do you see accidental casualties as a thing that you need to worry about?
I mean, yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, you never want to hurt anybody's feelings, right? Like, that's not why anybody gets into this. But it's also, on the other hand, like, you know, Hulk Hogan passed away, right? And I always chop it up whenever I'm going into like a debate or something, right? I always reference Rocky 3. I always remind everybody about Thunder Lips. You know, probably the only good thing Hulk Hogan ever really did for me, right? Was Stardust Thunder Lips. It was really big for his career. It was great for the Rocky franchise. But there's this great moment where they kind of go crazy on each other in the ring, and then it's over, and he's like, hey, man, you want to get a Polaroid together or something? And Sylvester Stallone's like, what the fuck, dude? You were going crazy on me in there. And he's like, that's the name of the game. You know what I mean? And I've always felt like left media, it's like we might go crazy on each other in the ring, but like this is, you know, not the right wing. Like we're not, you know, again, it's kind of like road rage is what I think about it, right? It's like the stakes are so high because we're talking about shit that everybody feels deeply about. We're talking about stuff that like really hits close to home for everybody, or we wouldn't do this for a living, right? Everybody that has a presence in left media for the most part that I can tell. They have something in them that like drives them to do this, right? Like they have a personal connection to one of these causes, right? And it's kind of like driving. When you're driving, your senses are all heightened, right? And so if some guy like honks at you the wrong way, you're like, fuck you, asshole, I'm gonna come for you and your children. And it's just like, no, dude, you didn't really care that much. You were just really tense because you were driving your car. It was rush hour. The sun was in your eyes. You had one of those little headaches in the back of your head. You know, you spilled a little coffee, whatever. You just have to take a moment and be like, okay, obviously that guy's also going through traffic. We had a little bit of a spat. Like, let's let cooler heads prevail. We're all driving home from work, kind of a deal. You know what I mean? So I just try and approach it that way.
I get that, because I think there's that classic like meme where the two dogs are like really growling at each other and they open the gate and they stop and then they close the gate and they start growling again, right? Exactly. So that's one way to look at it. But Dan, do you think that online in this space where we operate, that we should be taking into consideration that somebody's, you know, got their game face on, or take it more literal? Or
yeah, I mean, I think it's very difficult because we're often dealing in a lot of different spaces at the same time. So like there's us and our sort of like I consider Zach and Matt and many of us watching to be in our like sort of degenerate online left media space. And then there's politicians. Like, you know, like let's group like the Vanguards and the Dan from the Internets and the TYTs and the Letterhacks and the spaces in the world. Let's group that as far as Colbert and Chris Hayes and like, you know, even some like smaller creators who are getting on, right? Like there's a media class, and then there's politicians, and then there's voters. And sometimes we all get grouped as the left, but like we all have different, this is Power Report, the show. I'm not going to get in my soapbox about it. It's my show. I'm not going to do it. But like we all have different skins in the game, so to speak, when it comes to power, who has it, who wants it, who needs it. And that conversation, I think, you know, to your point, can get mixed up a lot, right? Like we can be speaking as the left, but at any given moment when we're saying or invoking the term the left, we may be talking about Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, or we may be talking about Zach and Gavin and Matt and Dan, or we may be talking about you know, the folks in the chat who are watching. Like voters, media, politicians, all of this gets mixed up. And I think especially when it comes down to the voters who are really dealing with stuff in their real lives, like I have people close to me who are dealing with ICE raids and having to make sure their families don't get disappeared. Like there's road rage, and then there's the road rage analogy, and then there's real life. And that's not to take away from what you're saying, Zach, 'cause I think it's a good analogy, but I think that like one thing that I have noticed in this space is that sometimes this space lowercase is that sometimes because of how quickly we're popping off, because we're driving really quickly and we're like focused on our like selves, to continue that analogy, we lose some of the precision of our language and who we're actually talking about. And so sometimes that can get, I think, misunderstood in ways that I don't think even the person speaking those words can intend.
Do you want to respond to that real quick, Zach? Or
sure. No, I mean, I could probably agree with that for sure. I mean, like I said, I think that since I find myself in more of what I would consider like an entertainment class, right? Like Gavin and I, we don't necessarily like consider ourselves journalists, more like pundits, right? So I do kind of see that as my role. Like I kind of embrace the fact that I see myself as somebody who is going to let it fly, whereas there are other people who want to do a more rigid kind of instructive show. I think part of the theme of our show is that it is more of like a hangout, like we call ourselves Silly and Billy. You know what I mean? So that's just something we kind of embrace.
I wonder, Zach, how much of Dan's history you know, like his work history at the Young Turks, and maybe Dan, you could elaborate on it a little bit, just so everyone's on the same page. And I want you to do it in terms of answering this. As somebody who's been behind the scenes, like producing Aggressive Progressive, but also like on panels.
Oh, you had to work with Jimmy?
Yeah.
More on that later.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was Dan's the one who called it and went to commercial that one crucial episode. That was
interesting.
Anyway,
yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that lore.
So okay, so Dan, you've seen it from all sides, I assume. Like you've seen like how Cenk is kind of Cenk, or is he? You know what I mean? But also like how, you know, you're behind the scenes, you have work to do, and then you're on camera. Hey, you're on camera, you know, energy, right? As they say. So, you know, how does it work like from that perspective? And in answering that, can you elaborate on, you know, your time at the Young Turks?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know you had asked Zach about like his understanding of me, but I guess just kind of like set the table for everyone. I was a fan of TYT and Kyle Kalinske and Sam Cedar and a number of these folks at an embarrassing age, frankly. I tell this story about how so I was born in the late 90s. I'm like the oldest Zoomer you can possibly have, or maybe like the youngest millennial, however you want to count it. And my mom would drive me to school listening to Air America, where I would hear Sam Cedar and Randy Rhoads and Janine Garofalo and a number of other different people like that. And so, you know, these other people in like the online blogosphere of the early 2000s, Chris Hayes, Matt Iglesias, Ezra Klein. Yeah. You know,
I relate to that. I used to be an early Matt and Ezra reader, and now I just cringe at the thought of it.
I love that, because honestly, if you don't hate where you grew up in politics, you haven't done enough learning in politics, I think.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, just to fast forward, that whole blogosphere was very influential on me. Me and Emma Vigland, who we didn't work closely at TYT, but we worked and left around the same time, so we have that close connection. But we would always kind of talk about our mutual affinity for Bill Maher until we figured out that like his anti-religious liberal posturing was not necessarily just, you know, like anti-Christian, but it was actually like, you know, Islamophobic, precisely. And I actually realized it because I went to Berkeley and he was going to be speaking at a commencement ceremony. And at the time, it was like a winter semester, like, you know, graduating session. So off course, but, you know, God bless the folks who graduate then. And I was plugged into the activists that time, and the Muslim students were protesting, like, you know, Bill Maher is this like huge Islamophobe. And like, that was, you know, maybe there's not like a particular moment, but to me, that was the moment where, at least for me, and I think I saw for Bill Maher, where he started to go on this like, I hate college campuses. This is all like liberal bullshit. Like, you know, I should be able to say whatever I want to. And that was kind of his like pilling into the alt-right. But to the TYT stuff, I was a fan of that entire environment. I had started visiting TYT because I had figured out that they were on Current TV at the time, and were with Keith Oldman and a number of different folks, and their studio was in Los Angeles. I was close enough to be able to like catch a bus and a train to get to their studio, and they let me in. I asked what work I could do.
Berkeley's not that close to the TYT studio.
No, yeah, I grew up in the Los Angeles area, and so they were in that area as well. Yeah. California is basically its own country, if you haven't heard. No, I'm kidding. But again, to speed things along, I met Cenk and JR then. I've talked a lot about that, and I was immediately like, you know, I'm big fans. If there's anything I can help with, go ahead. Not thinking there was anything coming out to that, and they put me straight to work. Like, so I was an intern from like
Jake.
I mean, like, I'm sure there was some jank things into that, but like I was handling a lot of like the community interaction. So we did TYT meetups, which were a really good like early community interaction thing where we hosted like different TYT events in different areas. There was like Chicago and like the Midwest was a really big area. So I was helping to run that. Our crowdfunding campaigns that we did in like 2014, 2015, I did. And then I was still working in college at the time, but I was also helping Cenk's nephew, that became infamous, with his little Facebook series, The Breakdown, and we were helping to write scripts together. I came back down, and I've talked about this on Majority Report before, where I made this deal with the devil with Cenk, where around the time the bigger corporate money was coming in and Cenk had less control over the company, he said, okay, I like you, but for reasons that are about to become abundantly clear, you're going to have to make a very important decision right now. You can work with John Idarola, and he was just beginning the Damage Report. I was one of the founding producers for that. That's what I wanted to do. Anna Kasparian was coming into her own as a producer of the Young Turks and was also starting her own show, No Filter, which I was interested in starting as well. This is when we got a lot of money to expand onto YouTube TV and cable and a bunch of
Katzenberg investment, the like 20 million injection.
I want to say so. Yeah, there was a funding round of $20 million, and that involved some change of the management. It's a little bit iffy in here, but like again, to make this as quick as possible. As a result, yes, I got to work with Cenk and Anna. I'm sorry, I got to work with Anna and John, which is what I really wanted to do at the time. The downside is I had to produce aggressive progressives with Jimmy Dore, which became more, increasingly of a train wreck. What Matt was alluding to was when Steve-O, the former CEO of TYT, and Jimmy Dore were yelling about Alex Jones getting censored on YouTube, and it became like a really big fight, and it abruptly cut. I was the producer who called the abrupt cut because I was like, this is TYT. You can argue. I don't care. But like at a certain point, it was getting unproductive. So I did that. That caused some ruptures between Jimmy and I. It got rough behind the scenes. Things happened. I continued producing for John. I eventually was the producer on the main show for the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna. So basically, this is all to say, I worked very closely with Hassan, Cenk, Anna, JR, John, Emma, a lot of these other different people, everyone pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. I saw them rise. I saw them at their worst. I saw them at their best. Same for them seeing me. And I left in 2020 around the same time Hassan left. Hassan left for reasons that he has talked about ad nauseum. I left for, at the time, personal reasons. What has now become a lot more clear, and what I feel a lot more comfortable saying, was because I was seeing Cenk Uygur choosing his political aspirations and disrespecting his employees for union busting and doing union busting, which was something
shout out to Hank.
I was going to say shout out to Hank Thompson, who was one of the producers and editors for with Hassan and I when we were producing that Facebook show, The Breakdown, and a lot of the other things you've seen on TYT, like Old School, all that stuff. Hank's great, love him. But that's when I started kind of leaving. I dipped my toes into like being a contributor with TYT because I was still pretty good with them, even though I'd left. Mm-hmm. But once they started doing I had started PowerPoint full force, and I was having folks like Bonnie Carollo and Rayvana and Sandy Lovas from Left of the Box, like queer, trans, non-binary people who are on my show. And the way that Cenk and Anna were running and the way that my contributors were running was not sitting with me. And so the more vitriolic I got in that rhetoric, the less and less I was invited on TYT. And I think that kind of like, we see where the intersection comes around then. We both saw this issue with TYT not necessarily living up to the homo progressives sort of bent that they'd had for a couple of years.
For sure. No, that's really interesting, fam. And I mean, good on you for having the fucking backbone to say fuck this when the writing was on the wall. That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, it was an infamous moment. We're all sitting there watching, and all of a sudden it's getting heated. They're yelling. They're like, YouTube should be a public utility or the internet or something. And then all of a sudden it cut, and we were like, oh, was that a glitch? What happened? It was like a moment as a viewer.
It was because I started cussing out both Cenk. Sorry, I started cussing out both Steve-O and Jimmy. And that's when Bart in the control room had heard me yell as I was running out of the control room, cut it off. Yeah. So, that's not cut on the mics, but that's there.
So, I appreciate the way you say like people should be growing out of their media. I think there's a lot of truth to that. People often say like the Young Turks were a gateway to progressivism, but also like online media, and I think that's true. And I know you agree with this, Zach, that it's true that we grow as people who create media too. Like you can't be satisfied with what you did yesterday. You need to, evolve and move on from there.
Oh yeah. I mean, 100%. I come at this, I think probably a lot more recently than the both of you guys. Gavin and I, we started a blog together writing. Gavin and I have been homies since 5th grade, but we started working on what would become the Vanguard. It's called Milk Mag. which was a horrible dog shit name that I came up with, but we were writing in college and I was like, yeah, dude, this is going to be great. And so I bought like a domain name and we were teaching each other WordPress. And I very much came at it from the perspective of like, I read Jacobin, like I read Vox every day. I read like, you know, the mainstream media pillars. I would get outraged by the commentary that I would hear that I felt like slighted Bernie Sanders and slighted the progressive movement. But I was not by any means plugged into what you would call online YouTube, online media, that kind of shit. Like I never checked.
And this
any
channel
of it
would be
out.
like around 2015. Sorry to cut you off, but just like grounding myself, like 2014, 2015.
So we started Milk Mag, I believe, in very early 2018 in an effort to cover the upcoming midterms from Kansas City. We were really concerned about Josh Hawley in his rise. We're in Missouri at the time, and there was the whole Eric Greitens scandal that we were really focusing on at the time. So more local politics. And then when COVID happened, we were writing, and at this point, covering exclusively the Bernie Sanders stuff that had happened. So this would have been 2020. And then in 2020, in May, we started interviewing candidates. And at that time, I'd had like a couple of years under my belt of watching Kyle, and like I'd become like loosely familiar with Rising, and I was watching that pretty regularly. But really at that point was when I became like plugged into the scene. And that was just kind of by accident, right? Like by happenstance. Like we were having a lot of fun interviewing candidates. We were still blogging every single day. I considered myself a writer at that time. I did not ever anticipate to YouTube really, but it was just something fun to do when we were all locked down. Originally, we wanted to get a van and go across the country. Then COVID happened. And so it became like a total nightmare to think about. The original name was going to be Burning Rubber. Then Bernie Sanders lost. And so then we were like, all right, let's call it the Vanguard. And then the COVID-19 happened and we were like, holy shit, we can't justify like getting out of our homes and like, you know, putting people in jeopardy. We're going to have to build like a studio show. So we started interviewing candidates from home, and then eventually we reacted to some drama, and that was what people wanted to hear from us. And we were like, great, finally somebody wants to hear from us. Let's do this.
Yeah, see, and I mean, I've only been doing this 3 years. I mean, I sort of had a hand in online media and the online left by, you know, creating art and trying to cross-pollinate audiences and viewers, but never really got in front of the camera till recently. But I'm a ham enough to make it work. It's I like it. It's fun.
It's fun.
Okay.
Yeah, you get used to it. But anyway, yeah, so that's how I came to the scene. So just very interesting to hear about, you know, you have roots that go a lot deeper than that than me, you know. And I think that was why we tried to theme the show the way we did, was we definitely kind of try and position ourselves as if we're the audience of YouTube now, because we started consuming so much of that. And once I started getting plugged in, you guys know how it goes. It's like you want to listen to fucking everything all the time, and you're like, oh man, I just need to have audio going when I'm on my walks or when I'm driving my car or shopping for groceries or whatever the fuck.
And I just want to say really quickly, that's a very savvy sort of thing you plugged into, because since this is for the old heads, I want to shout out Progressive Voice. Anyone know Progressive Voice?
Yeah.
So we learned about, I learned about afterwards, but I shout out to him. He's a trailblazer.
Yeah, I mean, like, no shade to what you're doing at Vanguard at all. It's incredible. But like, I want to say Progressive Voice invented like this sort of,
he did.
Quote unquote,
he did.
Yeah, this quote unquote TMZ of the left sort of thing. Like,
that was a term of endearment. I mean, yeah, people love him.
And let me tell you, Anna and Jenk were talking about that in the production rooms. They were talking about that show. It was on their head. I mean, like, you know, it's pretty obvious right now that like the things that, you know, the three of us on this show sometimes get under their skin. But like the idea that, you know, a young kid in his parents' bedroom could reach these sort of like, you know, I'm not even going to say like, you know, gilded halls, because like, you know, a warehouse in Culver City, but like, you know, like there is a certain thing. Like, I think, you know, media, I have to like, you know, set grace with the fact that like there's a distance between the people you see on media and the parasocial relationships are very clear and easy to do on YouTube. But like the way you're covering all this stuff that to me kind of seems like banal at times, but it's like, what does this commentator say about this commentator? And this commentator reacts to this commentator. Like that was a formula that worked very well. And, you know, I'll protect his peace, but I've talked to him over the past, like, you know, year or so, and he's like, you know, on to his own life and doing other different things. But yeah, I want to say that Progressive Voice, like it it was known. And
Oh,
I'm not saying like Jake and Anna hated it per se, but like it
They
would
were
color
watching,
some
yeah.
of they were watching. I can guarantee
Oh yeah, Anna
they
went
were
on his
watching.
show at one point. I'm pretty sure. He booked an interview with her, and yeah, I went back and watched a lot of Sahil's video. Yeah, to your point, it is like on the surface, it always seems like kind of banal, right? Like he said, she said, TMZ stuff, and what Gavin and I kind of plugged into was, you know, what do we want? We want to be able to reach people, right? We want to get our progressive message out. And so it's like, dude, I don't care if I have to spend 5 minutes talking about like some guy's show, right? I'm also going to reaffirm the fact that like, yo, we need Medicare for all. We need $15 minimum wage. So the more people you can attract to hear that message, like, is a net benefit. Like, I don't think that's a model that works for everyone, right? A lot of people have other priorities, but we were like, yo, if we're just trying to get more young dudes with a little bit of a bro culture to be open to these ideas, like, you got to give them a little bit of something to click on. And that was something that we hella have to give up to Sahil, because that he figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we want everyone to have veggies with their red meat, but they got to have their red meat. I mean,
they will, man. That's America. You know what I mean? The people love the red meat.
Speaking of which, let's clear the air, because I mean, this is, you know, you guys get along.
Yeah, dude, can you tell me what the fuck was the beef about?
Yeah,
because I'm gonna be real. Like, at one point, I know we made a video about Kyle, but this was years ago. And I'm like, I don't have any like animosity or ill will, but like, I understand if you have some like grievances that you want me to hear.
Yeah. What do you got, Dan? Do you want to explain where you're coming from?
Totally. I want to frame this as like, you know, other folks have seen this, and, you know, not going to name any names, but there are people that we all consider friends now. People have been on like all of our shows and stuff like that. Oh, nice packs. I love that. I used to have a packs. I don't have them anymore because they got a little bit too messy for me, but
sure, they are messy as fuck. But I've been quitting smoking, so I'm like, you know, I'm out here like trying all the other nicks and tricks and all that shit. You know what I mean?
No, after my own heart, honestly. And now we fight. No, so I guess if I can contextualize this and do this very quickly, let's start in 2025, right? We live in hell. Especially when it comes to the media context. This sort of strategy where, you know, there's many savvy strategies of like how to get attention and how to ultimately spread a political message. And folks like Kyle Kulinski is right now, I've called him jokingly and non-jokingly my favorite white person on the left in 2025.
Dude,
because
he's crushing it. He's killing the game right now.
No, absolutely. And this didn't just happen overnight, as I think we all know here. There was a point where Kyle Kulinski was actually a very popular, or, you know, frequent guest on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I won't say frequent, but, you know, more frequent than Bernie Sanders, more frequent than most other leftists.
Like 5 times, yeah.
Yeah, like more frequent than Jimmy Dore, more frequent than Cenk Uygur, like he was like the resident. I almost want to say that Kyle Kulinski was on for like election coverage with Joe at one point.
Oh, he was one time with Tim Dillon, and Tim Dillon made a fucking fool of himself. But yeah.
Yeah, so like Kyle knew he had this position within Joe Rogan's sphere. And let's fast forward to right now, where like Kyle is on a full-on warpath with his media. And I think, like, you know, not to be like pedantic or, you know, like crude about this, but like the numbers, his views, his subscriber count, like I think that has shown that that's a good strategy that's resonating with his audience.
Yeah, dude, he's almost at 2 million. That's crazy.
And it, again, I'm not trying to be pocket watching, but it took him a long while to crack that like 1.3 to 1.5. And
I remember the 1 million party.
Yeah. And so, like, again, I've been listening to Kyle Kulinski since the Blog Talk Radio days. He still does it on Blog Talk Radio, but like back then, that was like that and RSS feeds and iTunes, and Mark Maron was the podcast joint. Yeah. And you know, the stuff he said about access journalism, and, you know, just because you get to be invited with the parties of, back then he was criticizing people on MSNBC who'd be like, oh, a Stephen Colbert or a Rachel Maddow or Keith Olbermann might get invited to the parties in the Democratic National Committee. That doesn't mean you get to like hold back on them in your reporting when you're speaking to an audience. And so I was in a trademark way that I'm happy to take criticism for, kind of taking my approach towards, okay, how do I push progressive values however I can in social media? And the way I figured out was, you know, similarly to y'all, which is like internet drama and beef. And so Kyle had been part of the TYT network, and he had come to TYT a couple times, and I'd had some photos with him, genuinely a friend. But he was making a series of videos at the time that was like, Joe Rogan said this thing that was left and progressive. Joe Rogan said this thing that's like pro-abortion. Joe Rogan said this thing that's reasonable. And it felt like those things were in response to a larger conversation about Joe Rogan continually inviting, for every one Kyle Kulinski, there's 6 Ben Shapiros, there's 6 Jordan Petersons, there's 7 I don't even know these cranks, right? Like inviting all these.
He was having them all on, man. Yeah, it was crazy. Like he invented the like Weinstein brothers. Like they were
Weinsteins, yes.
before. Like he, you know, speaking of your college cancellation tours, if everybody remembers how they pouted about Evergreen University every goddamn time they went on that fucking podcast, like trust me, like I was early Joe Rogan head. I used to work at, when I was in high school, I used to work at this super late night pizza place, right? And so all of the dudes there were like stoners that were loving Joe Rogan. And I was like, the Fear Factor guy has a podcast. When I'm like,
and dude,
you know,
me too. Cause I was like, I get to like, you know, work at the gym at stupid hours of the night and like listen to Joey Diaz and Joe Rogan pop off. Like
it was
fine. It was
now
fine.
It sucks. Now it sucks. It's dog shit, and it has been for like half a decade. I would never simp for anything that's happened since the COVID really wrecked his brain. But there was a time when he was in Los Angeles when he was getting really good guests, and he was really good at letting them just fucking fill airtime. And they're like, man, it was a unique talent. But I agree, like in hindsight, right? Like what the fuck? But I'm just being honest and transparent. At that time, as like a 19-year-old kid, like I was fucking locked into it.
No. And I maybe been a couple years older than you, which doesn't reflect better on me. But like but you know, like I was locked into it as well to a certain point. But
sure.
There were definitely some certain points where I was like, okay, I can listen to a Joe Rogan episode if it's like a comedian guest, but I can't listen to it if it's a political guest because I know it's going to be like bullshit or like, you know, whatever. And so I decided to take my stand on saying that, listen, in the context of Joe Rogan continuing to invite transphobes and people who are like willing to throw LGBTQ people under the bus, I think it's kind of sus that Kyle Kulinski is still taking the position that he should be, you know, like defending this, arguing for the, you know, 1 or 2 times where Joe Rogan had Bernie Sanders on or like some leftist on. And I was like, okay, dude, we've got to actually, you know, like let's take some stock here between like, you know, me and Kyle on the internet, right? Like, are you the guy who I looked up to in media who was like, fuck access journalism? Just because you get access to someone doesn't mean you like play buddy with them with their bad political opinions. It means you use that to like some positive advantage. Are you that Kyle Kulinski? Or are you the, as he does right now, and shout out R.M. Brown, but like, he's like, Joe Rogan's not that bad of a guy, bro. I mean, you look at his good ideas, bro. Like he does this, bro. And so I called that out. Y'all made a video about it. I don't think it was the best characterization of me or also y'all characterizing me in that video. I'll also say that like my criticism of that video, which has since been unlisted. And so when I was trying to like criticize it afterwards, it was harder to because it wasn't online anymore. But like part of that criticism was like, okay, I'm criticizing access journalism and I'm saying that like this can't be something on the left that prevents us from acknowledging and protecting our allies who may be more marginalized, who may be more like, you know, forgettable in some particular conversation. Like trans folks kind of, I don't mean to say this, but like it was easier to forget about trans folks in the conversation in 2022 or so when I was bringing this up versus like 2024, 2025, when this stuff is front and center and being used as a target, right? And so I didn't love that. I didn't love that in the context of access journalism because shortly after that, y'all posted a photo of y'all going to Kyle and Crystal's wedding. So I was like, okay,
no, Kyle's my, like, I'll be honest with you, like straight up, like I love Kyle. I think he's been very kind to me, and I consider him a friend. And I'm happy to say that. The reason we unlisted the video was because we've been trying to institute a policy where we don't go after small creators, where we don't, you know, so that's why that one's not public anymore. But yeah, and I think that a lot of the points that you made are really valid, and I think that Kyle would agree with them, right? Like at that time,
No, I think
I was up. Yeah,
I think so too. And like, I don't want to cut you off, but like, I just to like finish laying the point. So like,
sure.
the beef continued, especially into like this year, and where unfortunately Matt caught a little bit of the strays, and I apologize for that. But I was just like going off because, like, you know, I think your success in calling out TYT and everything they've been doing by saying that we're going to cozy up to Charlie Kirk and Dr. Phil, even though they're transphobes, even though they're xenophobic and against immigrants, even though all these other different things. But because we have these media connections and we can have a beer with them. I was like, okay, Vanguard, I appreciate that you have the right opinion now, but what about then? Kyle,
I don't think Kyle Kalinske is comparable to the Young Turks. I mean, I think Kyle, he's 100% independent. He's never taken corporate money.
The only reason I say he's not, and I'll take your points. I don't want necessarily argue those for the sake of time, but like,
sure,
the thing that kind of made me pull back on Kyle was he went on the Majority Report days after the 2024 Trump election, where he was elected for a second term, and he was like, I've made the mistake for the past couple of years where I thought that by playing buddy-buddy with these right-wing commentators that maybe I can nudge them on a couple of issues, nudge them on some other issues. I was dead wrong. Like, not verbatim, but, paraphrasing Kyle.
Sure.
And he was like, I was naive and I have been naive and that is a fault of mine and I will accept that. But from now on, you don't give them an inch. You go scorched earth against these conservatives. You go scorched earth against anyone who is trying to draw wedge issues with our trans brothers, sisters, and non-conforming individuals, with our undocumented friends, with anyone who is marginalized or non-marginalized. If you're a white dude who is, making a good amount of money, but like still can't find your way out of your sector, like you're on our side, right? It was helpful in that moment because like no one else was acknowledging the thing I was screaming about, which is like this leftist solidarity thing, which is now incredibly obvious, which I think we're all on the same page with. But like at that time, I felt crazy because no one was acknowledging it until Kyle did. And not only did Kyle acknowledge it, but he has, as we've talked about before, since then in his videos gone on an absolute 10-gun salute warpath on that statement to apologize for what he did. He's making videos attacking Joe Rogan, calling him, I mean, not verbatim, but like to paraphrase, a little bitch who coddles Trump's nuts. Like he's going hard in the paint to almost make recompense for what he did. And so I think it's like, to be provocative, but where I'm coming from. It's not the most aggressive. It's like, I find it funny that a lot of Vanguard success recently has been on pointing out that you can't throw people under the bus when that's something you criticized and made fun of me years ago. I think that's the core of the beef.
Sure. Well, yeah, dude, I apologize if we made that video and it was, fucking scorched earth or whatever. I think to give you the perspective that we were coming from, big, longtime Joe Rogan listeners wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt also. Had a massive platform, huge fucking political, stage for Kyle to go out there. And I thought that Kyle had done a really good job in the past of really effectively making good points, right? And I go back to the early days of when there were people that convinced, like I remember when Joe Rogan got taught about the universal basic income from Eddie Wong, who's one of my favorite bloggers, right? Shout out to Eddie Wong, great memoir writer. But yeah, you know what I mean? And he would kind of get that stuck in his head, right? And then he would talk about UBI every once in a while. And then he has Andrew Yang on, who I had a bunch of problems with, right? But, so I kind of thought that Kyle could get in there and be like one of the voices of reason. And I thought that Kyle was earnest, and I thought that he would go in there and do a good job. Like I never really considered Kyle a guy that's like going and cuddling up to right wingers. And my beef with Jank lies a lot more in the fact that, he's not just going out there and cuddling up to these right wingers. He's doing it so that he can get access to their finances. He's doing it so that he can get a new round of funding. He's doing it so that he can get Peter Thiel's poly market money. And that's one of the motivations that I have for going so scorched earth. Now, I agree with a lot of the criticisms that you offered, and even of some of the early coverage that we did, right? Like we gave too much slack to this guy. He went and took $100 million from Spotify, and turns out he never gave a good goddamn about being independent, right? I gave him too much charity there, and we've corrected our positioning from there. But my big beef with Cenk, and one of the things that I always try and really go back to whenever we have the opportunity to talk about it, is that you can clearly trace his demise and his positioning to him, handing out his hat for more fucking money from corporations. And I think that's something that just like, Kyle has never even sniffed.
Yeah. I'll say just very quickly, that's an astute observation. I could give you, I know we're short on time, but I have a lot of details from the past I've been in. I think I could color that a little bit for you, a little bit more at a later time.
Hell yeah, dude.
It's you're in the right direction, but I think there's like some more sharpening for that analysis there on Cenk. I don't disagree with you though, overall.
It's the way he shits on the left at the same time.
True.
That I don't like. The way he is when he talks about the left, he starts using a fake voice and he goes into like a character to be a lefty. But then when he's talking about our brothers on the right, our brothers and sisters, it's like, it's all chummy. And that's true. I think that exposes the bad faith aspect. Short of instituting a statute of limitations on online grievances, this is exactly what we should be doing. And this is like, a totally admirable thing to just come on here and just be like, all right, what happened? Let's talk about it. Right?
Oh yeah. And I do want to say, like, for sure, like one of the things that I really regret about my early online career was that like I was pretty young, right? 21 when we like started doing the Vanguard YouTube show. And I was extremely pissed off. I was extremely pissed off at all kinds of shit. And anybody that like anything would just set me off. And I just used the Vanguard as a fucking microphone to go crazy. And one of the things that I've like, want to grow as a broadcaster, because, part of the appeal was that we were young guys. And I feel like, you have to accept that there's going to be some fuck ups there if you tune into a podcast that's hosted by young dudes. Like, college graduation happened during COVID. I never graduated. I dropped out. I got a job and started focusing on the Vanguard the full fucking time, which was, not advice I would give to anybody, but you know what I mean? So we were really young, really pissed off about a lot of things. And I just use the Vanguard. It's my like outlet to just like go fucking nuts. And that I obviously regret, right? That I obviously am like, what the fuck were you doing? Like that was immature. That was not a good thing to do. You know what I mean? Like to me, nobody was ever going to listen to our show. I was just like out there fucking, like I still worked a full-time job. Nobody in my life knew what the fuck was going on with the politics world. Like I would just lock in on the show and just use it as an opportunity to like fucking, and I definitely like fucking made some like way too aggressive fucking commentary about all kinds of shit. Sometimes I still do. And I have to be like, whoa, okay. Driver at the wheel in rush hour. Like don't behave like this. That's not cool. So I will
defensive driving.
Yeah. I dude, one time I had to take a defensive driving course when I was like 17 and I missed out on an Animal Collective concert with Gavin. He went with his
no way.
It was so fucking, it was brutal, man.
Not Panda Bear.
I know, man. It was, it was in Colombia. And which is like a 3-hour drive from where we grew up. And I was like, fuck me, man. So anyway, defensive driving always unlocks a belt. But no, dude, I'll fess to that. Like I have no problem being like, yo, like when we first came onto the scene, like I was a fucking crazy person because I've been in my house for 18 months. And then like, you know what I mean? I just like, yeah, that's another reason. Like some people are like, yo, why are some of your like crazy videos from the past like not public anymore? It's because I don't fucking want to be like starting beef with everyone anymore. Like I understand who we're like taking a look at, you know what I mean? We're up in 2025. Like the obvious target is fucking fascists, right? The obvious fucking target are the people who are in power right now, the white supremacists, the fucking people who are enabling an ethnic cleansing in Palestine, the people who are doing the most insane injustice I've ever bared witness to in my entire life, the black bagging and deportation of our fucking neighbors. These are things that we have to just, keep our eye on the ball for. Everything else is, window dressing, if you will. It's a matter of getting people to pay attention to these other issues. And so I've just tried to do a lot better as a person at like, hey, let's keep our fucking eye on the ball, which is why when Dan texted me, I was like, listen, man, like I just, let's get everything out in the air. Cause I don't have anything to like, I'm not mad or whatever. I
appreciate you saying that. And I also come from a similar place, like, and maybe even less, right? Like, it's great to hear that like, oh, you're like 22 and 23 and you're like, okay, that's the old me. This is the new me. I'm not going to try to even apologize for that. Like, I will apologize for that, but like, I'm not going to like die on that hill. I'm not going to stand 10 toes down on that stuff. Right. And, feel the same way for things I did 6 months ago, and I'm like 28. I just turned 29. So like, there's many a long time to mess up. And, I've been around folks like Hassan as well, who have we messed up later in the year. It's I think learning is an ongoing process. And as long as you're learning and you're like capable of learning, like that's a good step overall. But like, I think the follow-up question I kind of had to that is, when we think of right now in this particular moment you're describing, like, politics is very serious right now. And we both have, unique oblique talents in that we can make boring things go viral if we put our minds to it. And it'll be a little bit of a, we're going to wrap the pill in bacon. We're going to wrap the pill in some like sweets, but we know how to do that. We know how to do that well. How do you balance that? And how do you make sure that like someone said this to me like really recently and like elucidated what I was trying to like get at with this, but like, how do we create more than we destroy when we know that we are ultimately the abilities that Zach and Matt and I have to be able to make things go viral if we want to are based on rules that we don't create. They're based on the rules the same like techno-fascists of like what gets clicks, what goes viral, what are the things that people will react on. I'll post a video knowing that most of my audience won't see it, but a lot of right-wingers are going to comment on it, and that's going to boost the engagement and boost the views. Like I will do that every once in a while. Like Papa loves some AdSense, but like
Exactly.
at the end of the day, like it's a criticism of you, but it's also like an introspection of myself and all of us of what we're doing here is like, as progressives, where do we draw the line morally in that? Like, and I'm not sure, like, I don't think there's like a, direct answer of if it's this issue, this is when I stop. No, but it's like, I guess I'm curious for accountability reasons, but also like talking shop reasons. When you're thinking about like, for example, I could just post, no offense to Dr. Rashad Ritchie on Indisputable, but I could post videos of police brutality against Black men and women every single day and twice on Sundays. After doing the coverage that I did during the first Trump years and like all of that stuff, and as a Black man myself, there's a certain amount of trauma that I don't want to inflict on myself and I don't want to inflict on others. It doesn't have to be trauma. It doesn't have to be like, even that deep, but like, how do you weigh that, especially as we move forward? Because like there's TMZ of the left works in the algorithm, but at a certain point you get people who are just chasing that TMZ hit. Sorry, really fast, because I know my co-host is watching and making fun of me for asking like long ass questions.
Oh no, you're
like,
totally fine. Yeah,
but like, sorry, really fast, but like, there was a moment very specifically, and again, this is not meant to be like I'm petty Dan, but I'm just like pointing out moments and we can all learn from these. My TYT crash out in December was very deliberately planned, and you almost took the bait that I wanted y'all to take, but you didn't, interestingly. And the bait was a video that I'd recorded of JR talking about the Anna Jenk situation. And like, I knew no one was going to ever get that interview because JR is not talking to people like that. And y'all were covering it live. And the way I had titled the video was in a way that didn't make it seem like he was quitting TYT enough. I teased it, but like I didn't make it seem personal. And you're like, oh, well, if he was quitting TYT, he would have named it something differently. And then you just moved on. And to me, and a lot of other people were like, okay, well, this is a Black man speaking some real shit about politics in America as it relates to Jenk and TYT, but also as it doesn't. And you had Mondale Robinson on during this time. So I'm not saying that you're like racially blind on any of this. I'm not saying that at all. Sure. But it's like, again, to my question, when we're weighing the style of TMZ or like clickbait reporting, how do you make those decisions of like, okay, this video is not going to get monetized, but I need to say this because, this is Vanguard and this is where you, Zach, get to like express your opinions versus like, not my favorite video, but it's going to do well. And it's going to allow me to like do the first thing I talked about.
Sure.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
Please take as much as much of a long time to explain that. Yeah.
It's a totally fair question, and we basically balance it like this. So all the clips that you see, that's going to be just for like the content that we're thinking, all right, that's going to, put the word out about the Vanguard, right? Like, hey, people who don't really, aren't plugged in as much, don't know who we are, like, let's put that out for them. And then the live streams are where we pack it with all of our dense commentary. So like we might put out one 30-minute clip from a 3-hour live stream. We might put out no clips from a 3-hour live stream, right? But during that 3-hour live stream, we're going to go over all the breaking news stories of the day. We're going to respond to every single super chat that anybody sends us, which usually covers whatever topics du jour there are. We're going to make sure that any like real high impact stories that we want to cover are nestled in between whatever headline grabbing stories we have. And so for us, it's like, okay, let's make sure that every single day when we go live, we're filling the air with at least like 40 good minutes of news stories, right? So let's talk about, the Marjorie Taylor Greene amendment. Let's talk about, the different responses that people are having to that. Let's talk about, the DOJ. Let's talk about Emmanuel Macron suing Candace Owens for defamation. Let's talk about, these are all things we've covered like in the last couple of days, right? And we make sure we do all of that. But we never cut those into clips on the main channel because that would fuck up our brand as the TMZ of the left, the gutter guard, the silly and Billy, the like guys who shuffle shit. Like we are intentionally pejorative when it comes to those kinds of things. Like we lean into all of that branding. But then if you watch our live streams, like, we do all of the, in-depth analysis. Like today I was just spending my afternoon. I went through all of the 21 toss-up races on the electoral map for 2026 and, spent the day trying to get as much data that I could and as much information as I could about each of the districts that are up there. I think the Democrats are up against a huge motherfucking wall. So I want to temper everyone's expectations, right? I think that a lot of people are anticipating a blue wave as a result of the fucking backlash that Donald Trump, and you would expect that if you were in a just country that would be the case, but because of gerrymandering and because of the way that the deck is stacked this time around, even if the Democrats come away with just a slim majority in the House, that's actually going to be a big accomplishment for them. So making sure that everybody understands where we need to, have our expectations be, how we can move the line on the margins, because that's really all we can normally do. We can always hope for more than that, but there's going to be an element of serendipity there, creating the circumstances for luck, all those kinds of things. That's very important to us, and we never skip out on that. But we also always make sure that we have a little bit of that, spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down, and that's how we decorate the headlines.
Sorry, it was Matt, but I just have like one more question just for the sake of time, because I see it a little bit in chat as well. And this is a question I had, and I will keep it quick, I promise. And I heard, I don't mean to like disregard everything you said, because I heard and I agree with a lot of it. But the criticism might be that, okay, you're going very hard against Cenk and Anna, but behind Cenk and Anna are a bunch of people like formerly Hank Thompson, who are editors and technical directors and producers. There are people like John Adirola and J.R. Jackson and Rashad Ritchie, who seem to distance themselves in the way they can from TYT's more like regressive rhetoric, while also trying not to sacrifice their jobs and their livelihoods. Some of these people have newborn kids that they are dealing with, and how America is with healthcare and stuff like that. So how do you, with all of that stuff, weigh, it's okay if you don't feel that way, but do you feel a responsibility in your coverage to temper it so that it's specifically towards Cenk and Anna and not towards the TYT network? How are you thinking about what you're building versus what you're destroying in this sort of framework?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what I think is the real point of our show is the fact that, TYT presents itself as a network. It presents itself, and it really is a corporation, right? It's a corporate news network. They've done multiple rounds of financial investments from private equity. They have, locations outside of their California base that are responsible for their finances, right? This is a real major corporation. And the fact that two dudes from a house in Columbus Park, Kansas City, can, fuck with them in such a way that they're going to be talking about us on the mainstream network, or that, there would even be an insinuation that we would be able to put somebody's job in jeopardy, I think just underscores how feeble the network is. And we've always included in our commentary, hey, these are people's jobs. Not worried about the gaffer guy at TYT. I think that John Iadarola could have drawn a line in the sand when they said you don't even control your own show anymore. And I gave that commentary, but I also matched it with the fact that I don't know what that guy's fucking circumstances are, right? He might be, involved in something else, right? Whatever. But yeah, like at the end of the day, like I would have no problem like coming after a writer at, Vanity Fair. I would have no problem coming at a writer at the New York Times, right? And I wouldn't think twice about it. I would just say that's media. That's the fucking game. If you guys, want to come back and fire at me, like that's totally fine. We've had debates with really high profile people on our show. We never, are scared to put our money where our mouth is. In terms of like a guy like John Iadarola, I think he's a good person. I think he's a strong ally for the left. I think it's disappointing that the Damage Report is owned by TYT. I think that there are times where I would have liked for him to show a stronger backbone, but I can really feel for him. And then I don't know much about JR. I'm not that familiar with him. I know he's been with the network for a long time. I feel like shit for that guy because I'm like, man, you've worked really hard on something that should have been way cooler and now you're getting fucked. And then I know that everybody I've ever talked to has nothing but respect for Dr. Rashad Ritchie. So again, with that guy's situation, don't know anything about him. I know that he tries to keep his show very separate from the main channel. It's not like he's, cuddling up with Cenk on a main channel or anything like that. So I don't have any problems with him either. And that would just be try and clear the water on that.
I agree that John Iadarola could break out on his own at any minute and be fine. I think, pulling Mehdi Hassan, as they say. J.R. Jackson.
Health insurance is a motherfucker if that was
being
insinuated. But I agree with you that John is a super talent and he would be just fine on his own.
Yeah, it's ultimately up to him. I'm not suggesting anything, but J.R. Jackson like pioneered what it means to do exactly what we're doing now. Like that guy was involved from day. I mean, over 30 years. Right, Dan? 30 years. It's been a long time.
I remember we reacted to a clip that we saw was from 2007 or something like that. And JR was like, they flip around the camera and JR Jackson's in it. So that was when I was like, holy shit, this guy has been there for a long time.
Yeah, someone sitting behind a switchboard on YouTube with a nice ass microphone is a JR Jackson production. That's JR rated right there.
Yeah. Look, there are, it's the business model for YouTube is odd. I cannot figure it out. I'm always frustrated with it. One of the best things you can do for your optimization is to have a beef with somebody.
That's old radio style. We were actually talking to, I don't want to say who it was if it was the wrong person. I believe it was just an old radio broadcaster, and they were mentioning to us that it even goes before YouTube. Like if you were back in the day and you were on talk radio, they would all just start fucking beef with each other because that was how they knew that they could just like pass it off to the next guy, and it would be like, hey, he's gonna be all real pissed off when he gets in here, and then
Keith Olbermann and Bill O'Reilly. That was the game. That made it fun. John Stewart and Bernie Goldberg, like we're talking about his recent bits, like that's a direct callback to what he did back then with Fox News.
But I like to fantasize a little bit, and I know progressives tend to do this, but I like to fantasize that the criticism of Cenk and Anna will somehow get through, and if they truly are surrounded by progressives that work there, maybe then it's happening from all sides, and they'll eventually get the message. I don't know, but on the other hand, like the Silly and Billy t-shirts that we did, that was like deliberately meant to lean into something that was very negative from them to, like, oh shit, they're monetizing
Matt,
it.
I can never ever thank you enough for the design that you did of us as Beavis and Butthead. That is like my favorite thing. I need to get like a large scale printout and hang it in my bedroom. That's how much I love it.
But they can't keep insulting you if you're gonna keep monetizing it, right? So like
sometimes it feel free to insult us. Like we have thick skin over here at the Vanguard. Like I was a bartender. Like you can't fucking hurt my feel. Like you know what I mean? Like sometimes we all deserve to be fucking called out. Like you know what I mean? Who's gonna watch the watchers? Like that's it's right.
But I think that's what in like thinking about this episode and like sitting here tonight listening to you talk, I think that what it comes down to for me is and I think, this is true, that this can be a superpower, so to speak, as long as we use it responsibly. And I think that people need to be thick-skinned. I think people need to have a game face. I think people need to have a degree of performance and energy when they're doing online media, or else why you let somebody else do it, right? So anyway, I think this was really productive, and I think that there was, you know, a lot of agreeing going on. I hope you guys work together in the future. You know, I'm glad you asked me to be here just so I could hang.
Can I say one?
and
Can I say
listen to it,
one?
but yeah, I wanted to give you a chance if there's anything else you want to say.
Yeah, like on that point, I'll be mutually messy here if I can for like 60 seconds.
Okay,
Sure.
So after, especially for all of us on screen, after last year, where like I went full blackout crazy on TYT, also went kind of full blackout crazy on y'all, Vanguard being, and it ended up hitting some of my co-hosts, Matt as well, all of whom to I've like apologized at this point. I guess that's, you know, not the best sort of like motivation, but I'll say this, like, this is maybe the fifth attempt that we've made to like finally have a conversation. And there were like some points where it was like, we don't want to have a debate, we don't want to have to do this. Other folks have reached out in different ways. I'm finally glad it happened together. But Zach, I respect where you come from, where you came from like a media space. I came from an activism space, and then I stumbled into media. And so I think because of where I come from, that kind of like confrontational, like balance of calling out and calling in, which I do not claim to be a savant or even halfway good at. I'm still learning, and I'm still like growing, and I'm still like, you know, being humbled and matured by even folks on screen right now. But yeah, I think it's just like in that vein, it's very easy to say like, you know, I was a bartender, like I'm used to getting shit from people and stuff like that. But like, this was a little kind of hard to ultimately work out and make sure happening. So like, I think it'd be interesting of like, for me, I'm just going to make this sort of pledge that like, Matt, thank you for having this. And also thank you for being down for doing something like this for a very long time, even like back then, 6 months ago. But the reason why I want to do this is because like, it's a trope that people on the left like just get in endless arguments and never get, you know, find solutions. And I wanted people to walk away from this. If not, go ahead and we do a part 2 or whatever, like, you know, fight me. But like, I want people to walk away from this feeling like, okay, this is a model of how people on the left can disagree, can work through differences, and can ultimately like unite, and can also keep that bridge open to be like, yeah, I say that I want to be criticized, but also if you want to criticize me, there's a chat, there's a window, there's a way I can kind of speak to that. So yeah, I'm not asking for you to like apologize for whatever or anything, but like, I guess like I want to make the pledge on this show that if once I do the pivot that JR and I talked about in our video and have always talked about, where we run after that Candace Owens money, because it's so easy to be a black man who just pivots to the right wing.
Please don't.
And does the why I left the left video. That I pledge today that Zach and Gavin can beat the dog shit out of me, and I will come on their show to explain whatever I'm doing. Oh, you know, it doesn't even have to be that extreme. But you know, like I want the left to be a space where we don't have to fight and argue and get into like beefs and drama, all that stuff. But like when we do, we can do it how I grew up, which is like, you know, we talk it out, we hash it out. Maybe we do a little bit of pushing, but we dap at the end. And that's how we end up having a beer with each other. Because I can have a beer with Zach, someone who is ultimately fighting for like 80 to 99% of the things that I want. And like, I think would stand up with me, and I would stand up for him if we were like going 10 toes down in a fight in Kansas City with some Nazis.
Hell yeah,
dude, let's name the place. I blue belt in jiu-jitsu. It's the best I got, buddy. But no, I just want to say, like,
I love the spirit.
Are you willing to make a similar
man.
sort of like pledge? Like anyone who's
100%.
like, you know, like a good faith, not some trolls, not some bullshit, of course, but like a good faith. Hey, I'm a fan of Vanguard. I'm questioning this sort of thing. I want to be with you. Let's talk it out. I just hope that the next people who, if they have to do that sort of thing, they don't have to end up in a conversation on a 3-panel with Matt and us doing this. Like, I would hope you treat them better. I would hope that like myself, I've learned from this to like treat other people better as well. Like, this is how we move forward, and this is how we can like model this as hosts as well. I hope.
Hell yeah, dude. 100%. Really appreciate you having me on. I'm happy to squash the beef. We move on and we move better.
Smash burgers. We're squashing that beef.
Hell yeah. I do have to jump off. I've got a few errands I got to take care of before the end of the night, but appreciate you guys having me, and take care.
Thanks, Zach. See you, man.
Thanks, Zach. Talk soon.
Yeah, there really is. When it comes to like seeing the three of us up here like this, I was like, two more and it's Piers Morgan, right? Then we can all talk over each other and nothing can get accomplished except for the clips that'll find their way online because those were the times people weren't talking over each other. Like it's still,
or our report minus the clips finding their way online.
But there's a lot of truth to that. Like, I talk to Andrea off air about this all the time where I'm like, there's no business model. I'm looking at my subs going up by 3, down by 2, up by 6, down by 1. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no, why'd this video take off? Why not this one? I'm doing everything consistent. Is that wrong? And YouTube gives you suggestions and you're like, none of that's working. Like,
we're playing their game. This isn't even like it's,
you just have to do it to do it. You really do.
Professional sports is more fair, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
Because like, yes, you are effectively owned. Your body is being rented and sold by an entity controlling another entity, right?
You can choose to do a chemical program if you want.
Right. Yeah, but like at least you know that.
Yeah.
YouTube, like in my alter ego day job version of myself, I literally work in the opposite version of this. So like I do content creation in the evening on platforms like YouTube, Meta, and Twitch. And in the daytime, I do advertising for platforms like YouTube, Meta, and Twitch. And I learn about all of the algorithm changes in my day job first, months before y'all do, because I'm on the side that pays the platforms the money, and we're on the side tonight of the platforms that cost what cost the platforms the money. And so we're talking 7, 10 degrees away from politics and morality and, like passion and the things that actually drive the people who are watching this. Yeah. But the fact is, like, we're on their platform, so we got to play by their rules because ultimately we are costing them money.
Monday night, if I can just plug, I'm having the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Civil Liberties Director, David Green, on the show to talk about takedowns, such as random takedowns on YouTube and other platforms like Twitch, but also on an international scale. And joining us will also from the EFF is the Director of Policy and Advocacy, Catherine Trendacosta, to discuss YouTube specifically. So I'm about getting to the heart of it. I want to know how we can organize around what is seemingly just AI-driven mistakes that get people tossed. You know what I mean? And just wake up one day and it's gone. You're like, where were the strikes? How about the warnings? Well, I didn't do what you're saying I did.
2 questions. One, is that going to be on your channel Letterhack or on this space or?
Letterhack first, probably clip it and put it on this space because it needs the broadest audience. My hope is that I can in 30 minutes get and maybe they'll go longer, I don't know, but get 2 people to answer a few questions with a lot of elaboration on these 2 angles. One, what is going on? Is it what we think it is? It's AI or just some automated replies and not a human? And 2, what can anyone do about it? Not just the host and the owners of these platforms and channels, but the viewers. Because I'll say this over and over and over again: the online left isn't just a few lefties with a camera and a microphone. It's all the viewers. It's the literally millions of subscribers. Are you telling me we have that many people?
It's the mods. Shout out mods.
Shout out to the mods. And I have like 1,100 mods on my channel now. Can you believe that? We passed 1,000. And
so you finally stopped letting all the subscribers be the mods, because I know you have more subscribers than that. And at the moment, you're just like, if you subscribe, you're Oprah Winfrey with that.
No,
moderator.
I can't do that. You got to be in the chat. You got to show up in the chat to be a mod. But I
Valid.
did like 6 last night. It was awesome. But
no, but go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, what it comes down to is like, how can we have this many supporters who are also like, it's not just, oh no, my channel's gone. It's like, it's a lot more people going, what the hell? I was enjoying this content. I was learning from this content. They were making issues digestible. They were focusing on this or that thing that's really important. And I don't have time for that in my day-to-day media. So I get it from them on Sundays or whatever it is. Like, I want these folks to be able to tell us what we can all do as creators, but also viewers. So I'm not satisfied with, you got to go on Twitter and shout that they made a mistake. I'm not. And so I'm going to try and get to the heart of it.
Matt, you are getting at my like 42, my like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? Honestly.
Yeah.
Because
I don't want to do this without understanding it. Like, okay, when it comes to cars, gas, oil, pedal, steer, brakes, right? I don't have to know
batteries, jump boxes, you know.
But even
I'm
then,
an EV guy, so you know, I gotta be inclusive. But I get your point.
Exactly. But my point is, I don't look under the hood. There's experts who can do that. But in this case, I think we need to be able to fix our own shit when we break down on the side of the road, so to speak. I think we need to be able to say, this happened. I can identify the problem by checking these top 3 things, right? Like, here's my troubleshooting list. And now I know how to react versus, fuck do I do? I don't know. Ask another YouTuber who's had this happen. That's crazy. If your car breaks down, you don't call somebody and go, didn't your car break down? What'd you do? No, you know what to do. Like, there's troubleshooting, and there's experts out there, but in YouTube or in streaming, not necessarily. It's all hunches, and I'm tired of having a hunch, or maybe I think I know what's going on, but I don't. So I'm getting to the heart of the matter. And you know how I got linked up with the Electronic Frontier Foundation? Their director,
by getting sued?
No, their director of investigations wrote a comic book, and I interviewed him. So once again, comics making the world go round. I'm just saying.
No, I love that. And like, it's really like, yes, I've grown increasingly more jaded to the question of like, how is media able to influence people or change people's minds? And I honestly like dip back and forth between that answer, because I think
it's tough.
No one piece of media does it. But if you understand people's media habits and you understand their repetitions and their patterns, then you can, dip little things into it. It's why I always kind of rejected, not to dip back into the drama, but, like to get all into it. Like, I always rejected the idea that Sam Cedar was being like mean when it came to like the Dave Rubin or the Jimmy Dore videos, because that was purely an algorithmic hack. Like, it's just, it's just like, people are going to be Googling this name and they're going to be Googling this topic.
He would say that.
Yeah.
Like
Sam Cedar was like, Sam Cedar was like, Dave Rubin is writing a book, and my goal at that point, it was like his warpath, right? Like, it was his like kind of emotionally immature warpath. But like, again, in both cases, they got results. But like, it was his goal to make sure that like, if you Googled that book, you got one of those Majority Report videos where him and Michael Brooks, the time rest in power, were like lambasting him and making fun of the same ideas that he was expressing in that book. And so there's like, and I'm sure like not to get
the hypocrisy. Right?
Yeah, and like, but also like, it's even deeper than that. But like, but like, it's even deeper than that, because like, we all know that exposing hypocrisy doesn't convince people either, right? Like, you have to actually learn how to use the game. Like, to go really deep as fast as I can. When I was working with Hassan Piker, when we were making that breakdown series on Facebook, we were killing it because we were making videos debunking Tommy Lauren. We were making videos debunking Ben Shapiro and some of the other like Daily Wire people. And what happened in response? The right wingers started harassing the referees. They went to complain to Facebook, and they were like, this platform is biased against conservatives because we keep getting ratioed by Hassan Piker and Dan from the Internet and Francis Maxwell and, you know, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian. Like, it's really, and, you know, Meta's like Mr. Krabs in this situation. I don't know. I just like money. So why did you open Instagram too? Money. Like,
no, they
the
wanted to see the manager. There were a bunch of Karens all of a sudden, and they thought the fix was in. But what was really happening was somebody was speaking out against you. Somebody was trying to, you know, blow your cover.
As always, conservatives are classic projection, precisely. Yeah. And they were saying that, you know, Facebook is so liberal that they have their finger on the, you know, lever that is like the, you know, more woke bay lever, and they just like pull that down every single morning at 7 a.m. And that's why people see more of the Hassan videos. And so they complained to the people at Facebook, and the Facebook people were like, robotically, you're right. And if you'll give us more money, you're very right. And so
right.
You had this issue where, long story short, I think it was like a study where like Facebook used to have this little piece on the right-hand side of like your homepage, like modal, when you would like scroll through your news feed, and it would be like the top 10 stories in your region, like the United States, right? 7 out of 10 were from conservative media outlets most of the time. And I think a majority of those were from the Daily Wire, because they were the ones who were tugging on the ref's shirt. They were like, please, oh my God, that's a travel. You can't do that. Like,
it's like
I'm
Apple
sorry,
News.
I've become jank now.
Apple News even would do that. They're like showing me Ben Shapiro, and I was like, you're both sides. You're just acting like somebody's content is a valid opinion when it might not be. It could be bad faith, and I mean that shit always is.
Yeah, it's like one side says Nazis are bad, one side says Nazis are good. We report, you decide. I don't know, left, right, center. That's just how we do it.
Oh well, let's go out to dinner tonight and then go home. And like, no, the world's falling apart here. We have to take a stand. But there's I wonder what you think about this. I was just saying today. It's kind of weird because I'm alluding to a conversation that might sound intriguing, but it wasn't. I actually said these words. I was like, oh, I'm a disciple of the Majority Report, not Sam Seder. Does that make sense to you? Like, I'm not trying to say, oh, he's the perfect right-on guy, no flaws or anything like that. I just think the Majority Report is like this and this goes back to what we were saying about outgrowing media. Like, you know, I've told this story before. Sorry for being redundant, but there was a point where I was like, I can't take all the yelling and screaming on the Young Turks. Like, I'm mad, but this isn't healthy. I need something more boring. And I found these interviews of journalists on the Majority Report, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then they were also funny. They had dynamics built in. You knew it wasn't just going to be like, you know, a straight interview and then another straight interview and they were gone. There was going to be some fun, right? They were going to mix it up. And they were going to, you know, have diversity within their content. And so I think like people make the mistake, especially with me, because I'm like, I put on like I'm a disciple of Sam Seder or like his biggest fanboy, but it's actually that format and that platform and the way they do their show. And even that's not the end all be all, but does that make sense to you that you could be in like, that's why people are still saying like, and it always seems like they have a complex about it when they say this. And granted, it's always like mostly in a chat or a comment section, but somebody's saying, no, the Young Turks aren't all bad. It's just these two people or whatever. And it's like, well, let's get in that. Let's fully get into the mindset here. What we're saying is you have no problem with the Young Turks. You have a problem with the leadership, and shit always rots from the top down, if you ask me. And so, you know, I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I told
no.
I now understand what it's like to get the Dan from the internet experience, because I feel like
Oh, I can
you
go
had
on longer too if you want.
no, you had a full thought, and there were like so many different like points in there that I want to get to, and like I hope I get to as many as I can, but I'm just like, again, I'm constantly learning.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Absolutely. So like, no, to that, like, I remember having the same complaint, because remember I was a like associate producer of the main shows. There was me, and there was like another person who was like above me, who was like helping to manage the running of the show. But like,
now, does that mean you did all the work, or
no? I would
bossed you
describe
around, or what?
Actually, no. I would describe myself as kind of the boss.
Oh, okay.
In a way, in the sense that like you had all these different pieces, and my job was to bring them together. So we had a production meeting in the morning, and so it was like me, Jenk, Anna, JR, some other producers. If we had some interns working on the show, they'd be in as well. And we'd riff about the news. It would sound like honestly an old school episode of TYT. And we'd hopefully, if you get, we're a long-winded bunch, we'd figure out the stories and then filter them down. And then what would be my job is to like, okay, this story needs graphics people, these are the graphics we need. Can you put them in our little thing and then get them to the people who like put them in a computer that makes it show up on YouTube? And like, I would be talking to the person making the graphics and the person showing them on the screen that makes it so you see them on YouTube. And it was my job to make sure that those people talked to each other and liked each other, and that the host liked the person who was working the cameras. And I really like just, it's a glue thing when you're an associate producer. You're kind of knowing how all of the jobs work enough to do them if you have to, but hopefully to just keep everything working together. And if there are any issues like, hey, these are a lot of graphics, I need them to come in earlier, I can be like, hey, if we're going to order this many graphics, we either need to cut them down or like send them to the graphics person earlier so that they can make them, because that's just like fairness. And
it's an editor, man. You're a comic book editor, or in apparel we would call it a merchandiser or silo manager. But
yeah, like you are
disconnective.
Like, you're a janitor, kind of, and I say that in the most like
no. You got to know how to. It's more like the captain of the ship knows how to do everything, but he doesn't.
See, the custodian supervisor.
Right.
You're the custodian supervisor. You're the
senior custodian, I guess. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So, but like to your other point about like liking the Majority Report format of how they do it, Sam's got privilege in the sense that he was able to build a YouTube channel almost as long as TYT has, and he doesn't have to build like the almost 1.75 or 2 million, like I'm not really sure, congratulations to them, but like they don't have to build that audience in this environment with politics, and that they're able to like, you know, still be novel and get, you know, noticed in places like Twitch with Hassan, and that you know, sort of ill-fated infamous video with H3H3 with Steven Crowder, right? Like he's able to do those things to like expand his audience in little boosts. Or Patrick Bet David, that's another little different thing. But that's a privilege that he got because Sam Cedar was in Mama Dan from the Internet's Sirius XM satellite radio as she was driving me to school in the 2000s, right? Like he's been building an audience before YouTube existed. Same with Mehdi Hassan, same with Tucker Carlson, same with Cenk Uygur, frankly. And so that's an advantage that a lot of newer folks shouldn't take that as like, you know, like a disadvantage. Like, you know, I think Noah Samson's done a great job. I think FD Signifier is like really great at what he does in the space. Like, again, lowercase. I think you, Matt, what you're doing, and Sandy, like there are people who like 1 minute you're asking me about advice for YouTube channels, the next minute you're getting more views than me and more subscribers than me, and like there's no jealousy in that. Like I put the effort in my channel I choose to because I have the warm embrace of other things to do during my day. But like there's a privilege to doing the kind of thing that Sam does. And, you know, Hassan, like, there's the infamous bro tip, which has been mostly scrubbed from the internet, but if you know, you know, where Hassan was very problematic. And that was during the parts where, like, Hassan and I were fighting a lot behind the scenes, and not in a bad way, but, you know, having productive arguments, and getting to a place where he gets to be called Woke Bay, and getting to a place where we're doing that agitprop episode where we are challenging Jank on workers' rights at his own company for all of his employees to watch. Like, there's growth in all of that, and that comes with, I hate to say it, but that comes with the excess. So, like, it's not just enough to get leftist media to sustain. It's important to get it to excess, because that's when you get things to blossom. It's not just like you're just getting by to survive and, you know, you're just able to pay bills, but you're able to take chances, and you're able to take risks, and you're able to, like, you know, accept the fact that this interview with someone on the ground in Gaza may not get as many views, but God damn it, it's important to do. And it might get more views in the future, and even beyond the whole views point, like, it's important to cover. And that is what, you know, is morally the point. And again, like, when you talk about all these conversations, like, I want to, like, express to people, you can get so caught up in the algorithm and how it rewards you, especially when you're trying to, like, to sustain something, that you get so removed from the morals.
Yeah.
And I think the point, whether you're a technology reviewer or a car reviewer, all the way to, like, doing politics and news, like, the point is to try to use the algorithm to your advantage, to cause the least harm as you can, because it's going to cause harm, but build as much as you can in the process, and hopefully have that be like a building more than destroying kind of outlet. It's not an answer to your question. Those are just kind of thoughts.
No, that's, and well, and real quick, just to go back, I remember the first time I was ever like, oh man, somebody wants to interview me. I went straight to you and was like, hey, this is happening. And I was like a little too nervous to say, do you have advice? I was just kind of hoping you would offer it, and you did. And afterward, you followed up, and I think you told me, I think I was moving a lot, which I still do. I don't care. But at the time, I was like, yeah. I mean, this is my first impression. I should probably just learn to, like, be present or whatever, right? Like, which I have a hard time doing. So that was like, you and David Grossman were two people that I was constantly like in awe of, for being so cool about helping, right? And I was like, well, I have to pay that forward. And so as soon as I got to a point where, because I was doing 5 days a week for 6 months, and I was like, all right, I mean, this is fun. I like it. I know I can do it now. But it's not growing the platform. I could be doing 1 day a week and get the exact same 5 days a week, 1 day a week. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to have the same growth. So I was like, why don't I put this energy into helping other people? And I looked for a couple of different ways to do that. And then we ended with this space. But 2 months in, and I'm like, I think it's been 2 months. That's crazy. But like,
oh yeah, congratulations.
It's almost 2 months. I think it's 6 weeks. Yeah, thank you. But like, and it's growing. But I
think we just hit a milestone, like, just the other day. Like,
yeah, we hit 3,000 subs. We had 2,000 in a week. Crazy. I mean, we were on the majority report, and that just sort of got us off. But then, you know, kudos to them for hosting a whole ton of smaller creators. But so now 6 weeks in, and it's like, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm going to start that next project now. Right. Which is a little nuts, but it's like, so here I am, like, I tell Jake, my frequent co-host, Jake Drogellis, of What You Can Do. I tell him about this stuff all the time, just candidly off air. And I was bitching and moaning about how I should be at 30,000 subs by now. This is ridiculous. What is going on? It can't get over 7,700. What is happening? This is a joke. And he goes, that might be as good as it gets. And I was like, what's that supposed to mean, dude? And he's like, yeah, you might not be any better than that. And I was like, meaning? And he goes, you're an innovator. You're not going to be this guy. You're going to be that guy. You're going to be the innovative guy. And I was like, oh, I'll just lean into that. So like, if I'm here to make sure other people have a platform and get views, okay, I'll do that as long as I can for no money. You know what I mean? Like I'll make that my activism currently.
As someone who worked under Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Francesca Fiorentini, Hassan Piker, Emma Bigler, like, you know,
right?
like,
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. Like, you know, there were, and there are many moments in my past, and I've made videos where like PowerPoint is like a slight.
They'd be nothing without you, Dan. Do you see how that works though? It's not that they surpassed you, and they definitely didn't do it off your back. You know what I mean? But like, what would it be if you hadn't have been there?
Well, and again, like I want to say top level, the main point that there's no bitterness through all this is that like people expect that there is, but there isn't. Like I'm proud of, with the main exception being Cenk and Anna, but I'm proud of all the other people I've mentioned, and like whatever little or larger impact I may have had in their careers or their shows or what they're doing. Like I was talking about, well, damn, isn't it weird that you're talking about objective journalism and going to Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball's wedding? And it's a very Black Dynamite moment of like, but Dan, you just went to Emma Viglin's wedding. So, like there's a full access journalism thing. Like if and when there's some take that Emma has that people disagree with, I'm going to have to be like, okay, hey, all cards on the table here. Like, this is one of my closer friends. And so you should honestly take whatever my co-panelists say with more truth than what I have to say, because I have that bias. I'm not sure I'm able to like take that away for someone I'm that close to, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the overall strength of this whole environment is that we're having these conversations, we're pushing this dialogue, we're like trying to build something together. And even if, yeah, there's a lot to be said about like someone who puts the things together. Like, here's the thing, not to be crude, but who has a better life right now? Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, or Roger Stone?
Interesting question. I think these are figures.
Matt Strackbein, you are the Roger Stone of the left. You've got the whole tattoo on the back and everything. You got that. Let me just get that. No.
Who's the tattoo of though? Is it Sam or Cenk? Like, who's the tattoo? It's like
okay,
Tom Hartman tattoo, right? That's what,
yeah, Tom Hartman. No, but like there's an interesting I mean, like, first of all, there's fewer death threats.
Right.
There's some smoke, but there's still like fewer death threats because you're not like necessarily in the front. But like the strategery, if you will, to borrow some like 2000s phrasing,
yeah,
like of building movements is enough for a lot of people, right? Like there's so many people in like the Black Panthers, there's so many people even fast forward to today. I know a lot of like Asian American and Pacific Islander like activists who are doing things, especially when it comes to the ICE raids in Los Angeles, right? And their names may never be known. Their names don't need to be known. It's the work that's being done. It's the people they're being saved that's much more important. And it goes back to that kind of question of like, if you have kids or you have offspring or you have like nieces, nephews, nibblings, it almost sounds like a slur, but I'll just like say it to be like gender inclusive, like, and they ask like, Papa Matt, what did you do when Trump was in his office for second term and everything went bad? Like, it's like, what did you do when Reagan was in office and like everything, like all the numbers started going down and all the prospects started going down? Are you going to say, well, I was like a real estate executive and I was making a lot of money? Or you're like, well, I was doing my best to make sure as many people as possible knew what was going on in an environment where people were telling lies and trying to hide the truth. And how could I ultimately empower people to not just consume these lovely shows and, you know, like and give comments and share and give super chats and all those other different things, but also take what they're learning, and if they have the ability to go out in their communities, or if they can do it digitally or they can do it like remotely, like support the efforts that are going on in their communities for showing that. That's how I end Power Report all the time. The power is always within us. And I'm not even trying to be cheesy about that. I'll say really quickly to I promise here. When the wildfires were happening in Los Angeles, and I was like in Los Angeles at that time, I thankfully wasn't affected by the wildfires personally, but people in my family were, and all the smoke was coming towards my area. So it was like bad for a number of different reasons. But the firefighters were out there. The prisoners who were hired for firefighters were out there fighting the fires. They were all doing their best. You had CAL FIRE, which is like the state fire service, who was out there. So you had LA County Fire, bunch of different fire departments coming down to actually fight the fires. The police weren't doing anything except harassing people who were just trying to get back to their homes once they weren't on fire. And the community support was overwhelming. It was so overwhelming, Matt, that like you would be like, oh, I have extra cans or extra food or extra blankets to give. And you would go to the Palisades, which is a wealthier area, or you would go to even Altadena, which is a more working class area, and everywhere you went there would be like, thank you for showing up, we appreciate your support, we actually have too many clothes, we actually have too much food, so if you can go down the street and help them out there. Like, people have each other, neighbors have each other, people who like have dumb opinions and like wave weird flags, and like you may not want to sit next to them when they're talking politics during a holiday, right? Like, they're the same people who will, if the time comes, give you more food, water, clothing, whatever you need when you need it, because they're your neighbors. And there's a lot of faith to have in just like neighborly goodness. And I think there's a lot of stuff to be able to do in this media space to be able to push people, or, you know, encourage people to embrace that, because it's beautiful and it exists, and it's way easier to exploit anger and fear. That's how social media exists and functions, and yet we still have to like exist in these spaces. That's like the circular conversation here. But once you tap into how good neighbors are for neighbors, and how like politics literally evaporates, the way we understand it on social media just evaporates in moments like that, it's so unlocking, because you can actually get political and be like, huh, you know, Republicans would have us be all like independent, everybody for themselves, and, you know, like
Right.
fighting against each other, not sharing food. They would have it so if you lived on this area of the city with the country club, you would get the priority help and all the food and shelter. And if you lived in this historic neighborhood that with the streets that aren't paved and a couple of fireworks that go off at night, then you don't get helped as fast because there's too many, there's 50% plus one brown people in your neighborhood, right? Like, that's that party. This is the party, and I think, like, you know, Zoran in New York, Omar in Minnesota, a lot of other people are starting to actually embrace, is this abandonment of individual politics, but more of like a collective, we've got each other's backs. We don't necessarily need the systems. It's not like full anarchist, but also like, let's start with our neighborhoods and our communities as a base, and then be like, how should our government support the support that we already give in our neighborhoods and our communities?
Yeah, and I do think, like, if somebody was to say, what did you do during these times? And I say, oh,
Yeah.
started an online media collective. Hopefully the next question would be, how? And I would say two ways. One, this sort of messy, some people would call this like a knack for being able to do this, or maybe even like a skill, or I don't know, a talent to the most successful at it. But like this messy way of seeing a window of opportunity and going through it without being an opportunist, seeing how to connect certain dots and how to connect people and how to schedule people and organize people in a way that utilizes people's individual strengths without exploiting them. It's like we're always building a commune. We need the electrician, the plumber, the teacher, the cook. You know what I mean? Does anybody here know carpentry? Well, maybe one of us could learn it. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of doing that without being exploitive and exploitative and telling like, oh, you don't have a use, you're out. We're not doing that, right? People will come along and say, I can do this. Do you need that? And we're like, well, maybe. But like, we're not just going to say, yes, we'll take it all. You know what I mean? We're not being like weird or greedy about it. The other way is you do it with your friends. You almost have to know who you're working with. And so it's easy to say, organize locally in your community. With who? Do you get out that much? Do you know these people? How do you do that?
Yeah,
somebody
you can't just like do
to,
that organically. You have to like actually start to. It doesn't just start with like, I'm going to do this thing. First of all, like in a lot of places there are already organizations doing that, but like even if there aren't and you're starting from scratch, you have to be like, hey, nice to see you, neighbor. Or you just have to like not even do that, but just like wave at them a couple of times.
Yeah. Oh, you want to volunteer? Talk to
then,
Bob, who's also owns that grocery store over there or whatever it is, right? It's like, oh, okay. Well, now I do know him. He's in this community. He's a member of this community. This, again, is not somebody who's like just going to wait till we have some money and walk off with it. You know what I mean? Or like get us to a point where he's the boss of it all and this sucks because now it's like
as a complaint about a lot of Democrats, like, or in major cities, and definitely Republicans too, but like, you know, not to get on a libertarian bag or anything, but like all of like the cities that had, I think like the boss hogs, right? Like the political dynasties that you had in like Chicago and New York and Los Angeles that were just like corrupt. Like Chicago was still like, oh, you know, the mob owns the parking meters, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
It's you still have stuff like that. And that kind of stuff, the whole like, you'll see me 6 months before election day, and that's about it, is something that I think enough people see through. Even if they're not that politically engaged, they see that, and that maybe makes them less politically engaged.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's, you know, I talk about this stuff with my wife and she's like, could you stop being a letterhack for like a second? God. And I'm like, I'm not. It's just, this is not work. This is very interesting because look, I wish I didn't have to pioneer every day. Right. But
good on you for getting married before you became like this.
But there's like a lot of figuring out. There's a lot of doing it for the first time. And then you're like, write that shit down. So, you know, who's creating the text that we're going to use as a resource for when this comes up again. Right. But I also think that it's, you can be overwhelmed by it and burn out quick. And that's another reason to rely on people. There was a point this past spring where I was like, I'm done. I'm toast. I can't do it. My personal life, along with everything that I'm trying to do, that's it. I'm calling it. And Ben Dixon called me on the phone randomly. And 20 minutes into it, I was like, I said, hey, I appreciate it, man. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. I'm back. Right. Like, I got this. Don't worry. But you need that inspiration.
One of the pastor's sermons, though.
He talked to, I said, I didn't realize I needed a pastor to talk to me like a pastor would, right? But not like it's not like we prayed together. You know what I mean? But like he told me exactly, he read me like a book and then read it back to me, you know, told me, gave me the cliff notes, and I was like, I got this. But like you really do need to be able to rely on people. And I think that's what I like about the left is that relying on somebody is that's a two-way street. You know what I mean? You got to be there. So like there's no, like with you and I, there's no time where I would be like, yeah, fuck this guy. Like I would not Like, no matter what it was, it would be like, no, I know this. I know.
I mean, no,
Like,
no,
we're
like,
gonna talk about this.
and I appreciate that because, like, even at my worst, where like it came off a little bit inadvertently, where like Dan was like, "Hey, fuck this guy" to the Letterhack. Like, you called me, we talked it out, we had this initial sort of like, okay, this is like a deeper thing about understanding the left, and then you had future conversations with like Ben Dixon, I'm sure, and like a number of other folks about like this sort of thing that I was talking about, and that ultimately culminated into this conversation with Zach that we just had, which I'm glad to have had as well. But like, that comes from again, like, so much has been bastardized about the leftist organizing space because the 2010s, because everyone thinks it's all like cancel culture and, you know, privilege walks and all these other different sort of things. But it was, you know, and there were definitely, you know, people figuring out sort of social cues and people figuring out things for themselves and pushing the boundaries of different situations, right? But a lot of it was like a practice in having these disagreements and having these arguments and figuring out like, how do we resolve these things in a way where we're all actually able to like go out and have a beer with each other. And again, like the things we're resolving are not like, is your humanity valid? It's more like
so
it's all these other different things. And so
this
like
is the evolution of the dramatic infighting at the online left. It's that my hope is the evolution of it. And I know this sounds like lofty. I don't mean for it to, but that people are confrontational without being confrontational. Like, we're confronting issues without, you know, between us, without being like, oh, people are going to be commenting on this. People are going to be doing reaction videos to this.
if I can be very
do it off air,
pessimistic,
I
it's just
I
that
don't know.
like there's, not to get all Karl Marx about it, but like as long as we're in a capitalist system,
Yeah.
you will never have the incentive to where, okay, where me and Matt and Ben and Zach and Gavin and Franny and, you know, whoever may have a pact to where if we disagree, we'll keep it to the DMs, we'll keep it to the group chats, we'll like, you know, have conversations off air and like trust that we can reach some reasonable middle ground. But there will always be a John Idarola. Yeah. I'm saying this because he's like the nicest person and the least likely to do this ever. So like, I'm just being clear, but like, there will always be a John Idarola who's like, okay, if everyone else is unilaterally disarming, then I can go in for the kill and I can have fun with this. And as long as we exist on platforms like that are run by, I think we need to like start to shed the phrase techno oligarch because it's like a little bit too technocratic, but also it doesn't get at the fact that like these freak nerds, I don't know, we're workshopping it, but like they want to take over society and rewrite it in a fascist way to like, these are the Hobbit homes people that Alex Jones is worrying about, right? And so as long as we exist on their platforms and in their systems, it's why I'm a big advocate for like, okay, I get that like some of y'all still get some sort of reach on Twitter or X or whatever, or Threads or whatever, but like these are all platforms for rage bait and bots. Get on Blue Sky, ignore what people say about it being an echo chamber, because first of all, it's not, as long as you follow a diverse amount of people. B, it's the left, so we can fight about anything. And C, it's also better just for your mental health to not be interacting with like fascists all the time.
Oh yeah.
And D, I think the ultimate point I was getting at was that you can start to actually build things there again in a way that's very reminiscent of that early blogosphere where you had the, you know, skinnier and less hunky, you know, Dilfy Chris Hayes and Sam Cedar and Ezra Klein, etc. Right? Like Matt Iglesias, I think, you know, I'm not here to body shame, but like, you know, is since the 2000s. Anyways, but you know, like I think that yeah, I'm a cynic in the sense that I don't think we'll ever get to that point you're describing, as long as we are on platforms that incentivize what you're doing. Because I mentioned a lot of nice people. Let's talk about Vosh. Let's talk about Destiny. Right? Like, I don't want to talk about them. That's the first time I've mentioned them on a podcast in a while, and the last time I want to in a long time. But like, and also too, like, if I have some like backwards, follow up, not necessarily critique, but like follow up to our conversation with Zach, it's like we approach media very differently, and I think very generationally differently. We're like, I wanted to be a journalist first, and so there are like a whole bunch of like ethics and principles that I like care about to my core to a fault that I just took to YouTube because that was a medium that I figured out very early. And Zach and Gavin are like, this is a algorithm we know how to game. Let's see what vitamins we can fit into the bacon. But that's going to be primary to the secondary, tertiary, quaternary sort of version of like any sort of like, ethics. I'm not just saying like, like they're learning, and I honestly, like, I don't mean any shade to any of them. Like, I came to that conversation so like they're learning and they're willing to learn, and hopefully they're willing to like take criticism a little bit more honestly. But as long as you have people who are like, for lack of a better term, simps like me and killers like the Vanguard, like, you're not going to have that environment until we're on a platform where like it's like RSS feeds, or it's like early 2000s web forums where it's completely democratized, where things only get boosted because of their merit, like the early days of Reddit, right? Like, there's fewer algorithms, there's fewer algorithmic suggestions, which themselves are opinions of whoever created that system. But yeah, that's the world we're going to need to get to. And as long as someone like Hassan can still get a lot of retweets on Twitter, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I always refer to Twitter as like that mall that's obviously on fire, but you love that one ice cream place in the food court, so you keep going there. And I'm like, okay, maybe slightly not the best ice cream in the world, but also not on fire over here. Like, what are you doing? And I'll tell people in like the most serious way I can, you don't know this if you're on Twitter, but I guarantee you that your outlook on life, no matter how similar it is to mine and realistic, is skewed because you're on Twitter. Because Twitter is giving you this skewed perspective it's so not real. And if it is, it's so not cool that you're either more depressed or more negative, just even if it's just a little bit, you are, because you're on Twitter. You have to get off of that. It is a bad thing. There's there's no better example of bad outweighing good than Twitter. I remember people used to go, well, I'm just on there for the news. What does that mean? You can get news,
what news?
in a million places. Like, do not just leave. Everyone should leave.
I mean, no, there's such a, I think, a societal thing to that, because of course we're very locked into politics, but adjacent to politics is like dating culture and like the sort of like loneliness epidemic and like, guy girl discourse. And we're not going to solve that here, two cis dudes on a late night politics stream. But that same effect where people are getting funneled into content, like, if you've been cheated on before, sorry, I've been there, then you can fall into a rabbit hole of content that is like, all women are cheaters, all men are cheaters, like, you're doomed to attract this sort of person or whatever. Like you can go into a rabbit hole the same way we talk about like alt-right pipelines in politics, right?
Yeah.
And this is just like what these platforms do. And so, I think, again, my one optimistic thing is I have a lot of faith in humans. And so I think even though there's a lot being talked up about AI and its abilities and its power, I think that culture is different. The way you see, I just saw a study that like Gen Z is rejecting dating apps now because of all of the AI features that have been added to them. And it's like,
Oh yeah.
finally, this generation is touching grass.
Wow.
I love it. And not finally, again, I'm part of this generation. We're
Does
not going to
Gen
solve
X
this on
do
this
dating
podcast.
apps? I don't. I mean, I've been married the whole time, but does Gen X do? What do you know about my generation? Are we heavy into dating apps? Probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think very much so. It's just like different dating apps. Like, you know how Facebook skews a little bit like older in generations. Like,
Yeah.
maybe there's some dating apps that skew a little bit older and some dating apps that skew a little bit younger. Like, you have a lot of dating apps that are you know, based on certain populations, like and also based on certain dynamics. So like Bumble is like women get to initiate conversation first, whereas like Raya is like it's invite only and you have to be part of the cool kids club in New York or Los Angeles in order to get on. The most boring app I've ever been on, not to flex, but also like literally I would give my account to anyone else and just they'd have
That
no
would
fun.
be a great profile. Like, glad to be here. Never been more bored in my life. Who wants to go out?
Sounds good doesn't work. That's one of the old Trump classics. That's one of the old Trump classics. But yeah, no. I think to answer your question, it's there's just different apps for different folks, and also there's different scenes for different folks. So it's easier and harder just based on your who you are, but always just be yourself. Never fake who you are. Just be yourself.
I intentionally made Donald James X just brought this up in the chat. I intentionally made a very messed up, what is it, Tinder? A messed up Tinder profile with a guy. It was messed up, and we were trying to be messed up, and we were just having fun. And we were like, nobody's gonna click on this, and it blew up like right away. Like all kinds of people were like, whoa, you're either amazing or a total asshole. And I was like, oh my God, why are people interacting? Why are people engaging? I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. He was like, yeah, I'm deleting that profile. But I don't know. The world is weird, man. People
again, Hassan and I used to do. Oh, I think this is more Hassan at this point, honestly. So I'm not going to take too much credit from him. But bro tip was a thing. It's been scrubbed from the internet because it was the best way I could describe bro tip was Andrew Tate before Hassan knew what sarcasm was.
Okay.
And like I knew Hassan didn't have those opinions, but he just wasn't good at expressing sarcasm. And so it's a little it's a little blue. Let's call it that. It's a little blue.
I love when things have been scrubbed from the internet. I don't think I personally have anything that's been scrubbed from the internet on my own.
I've scrubbed things from the internet
has been scrubbed, but it's not because of me. I used to have a blog on, what was it, Blogspot?
Yeah.
Is that gone? I can't find it anywhere. Sometimes I find other people's Blogspot, but I can't find mine. It's just like long gone. I feel like I wasn't good enough.
I have a couple of blog spots that might be out there under a bunch of different pseudonyms. I'll wait till my political run for someone to like dig those up. It's just going to be about like Team Fortress 2 or something.
Oh yeah, I always say if I was going to run for office, well, it's too late because YouTube, the internet is digital ink is permanent, they say.
Well, no, I think that's going to be the thing, is that like we've already had presidents and like political candidates who like their nudes are online.
Yeah.
Like they've been leaked, you know, we've heard them say some stuff. They've had some heated gamer moments. I think we're going to get to a point where like, as long as you've made a decent amount of recompense in your life since then, and as long as it was like, you know, decently enough in the past, like in your childhood, like I think it's forgivable.
Well, I mean, if somebody was like, so Matt, where are you from? I'd be like, what do you want to know for? And they go, well, it was an honest question. I go, yeah, well, what are you going to talk to people there?
That's real.
Stay away from my hometown, dude. Okay. Go to all the places I lived after that. Don't go back to the origins.
There's
I've been getting better since leaving.
There was one time where I was just like, I had to leave work, and they're like, "Why?" And it's like, well, I could tell you that I'm leaving to go to like a family member's birthday party, but I don't want you to know that personally identifiable information about me.
Right. Exactly. Right. No, I always strive to be the mayor, the unofficial mayor of towns that I lived in, like where I could really like, be a well-known popular guy who's good time Charlie, and every now and then doesn't remember what he did the night before. And then I just got to a point where I was like, yeah, I'd rather just be on the internet. I'd rather just have a YouTube show and put it all out there and let people make up their own minds, rather than go around and try and win people over all the time and buy around and have a good time. And what is that for? What are we doing? What are we accomplishing? Plus, is that me? Are they getting to know me? I don't know, but like once you're sitting here in front of a camera, fucking anything can happen.
Yeah, when you're sitting in, I mean, we've done long interviews in the past. If folks remember, I remember your original interview series when I was back at my other place, where we were just like, talking about everything about life. So yeah, you can get real around here, especially when it's just like, yes, on the screen, I'm talking to Matt. Mm-hmm. In my life, I am talking to my camera that is hanging on a tripod that is looking right there, and no one else is in this room except whoever is in earshot outside of my window. Hi, street cats, whatever, right?
Yeah. So I got to stop having regular conversations with StreamYard, because I can't remember. Did we talk about that on air, or was that off air? Like, was that a private conversation, or because it's this exact setting and format, and I don't know, it's weird, but I just need a better memory probably. But anyway, I did enjoy this.
No.
I mean,
I get this. Yeah,
great coming on here.
Do you have some time to read through? We have a lot of comments that came in.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of good ones. I'll go kind of like most recent to like the past, unfortunately. So that'll bias some things. But Greg Wright says, Dan, haven't listened to you much, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this convo. So many good people still. It's reassuring in 2025 America. Yeah. I didn't get to tell this to Zach, so I hope I get to like talk with him again sometime. But him and Gavin and also myself have had interest in going across the country and talking to people. And I think they've done some of that work as well on their channel. And I did that too very recently. I didn't want to record many of the conversations just because like it didn't feel, I record too many of my conversations. And so it just didn't feel as genuine, which is not a knock on how anyone else does anything. But I just
would you write about them? Would you?
Oh, yeah. I have I have a bunch of like airy sort of like existential videos planned that I want to try to get done, but I just like haven't found the time. But I took like a vow of silence for a week where I just like didn't speak at all, and that was very interesting, especially as like a pundit or like a commentator. Going across the country was very interesting. I still have like, as folks know, DFGI 21, which is like a project about electric vehicles and my unresolved crash out with Elon Musk, which kind of predicts a lot of what we went into right now. Which, now that I think of it, I should maybe add a section about how Jank reacted to it, because that might be juicy. But
I'm intrigued.
I'll save that for the Disney Vault. But yeah, like to that point, I have found that the stereotypes we have about people around the country or on the coast or however we view people who aren't like us are just that. They're stereotypes. And there's, not enough good in people, but more good in people than you may be led to believe by just like consuming your algorithmically curated social media feeds or your if it bleeds it leads curated local news. Like there's a lot of good people out there who would like pull over on the side of the road and help you out if they could, like regardless of how you looked. There's not enough, absolutely, but there's more than you think.
I've been in the South for 3 years now. And it's really, I make this analogy a lot too. It's like when I got here, it was like landing on an alien planet and you have to take your helmet off and see if you can breathe, right? And then when I realized I could do that, I was like, okay, well, let's see, get to know the inhabitants, right? And there is a thing in the South where people are nice to your face because they have to be. And when they say, God bless you, sweet, they don't mean that, right? There is that thing. But then it's perplexing because you don't agree with these people on, literally 100% of the issues. Whether they're laborers and working class and bottom up or not, they're still going to do the wrong thing in the ballot box most of the time. But like, they will stop and help you. They will all come out and be like, nope, you live here. Yes, we refer to you as a northerner, but like, you live here now. So we help each other out. And I'm just like, I don't know how that works. Thank you, I guess. But like, also, what's your fucking problem the rest of the time? It's really odd. But like, I've gotten to know some people down here and it's like, well, no, they're just decent people. They just are, so you can't, I don't know. It was easy for me to judge and people are like, oh my God, you're moving to South Carolina. Why? And I was like, well, I don't know until I get there if that's the right attitude to have. And I would say it is 30% of the time. The rest of the time, it's don't be afraid. I mean, I think progressives and lefties need to spread out, frankly.
And I'm pulling from a lot of Black creators that I've been listening to a lot, especially since the election. So shout out to Ole and FD Signifier and Ben Dixon. But like FD got into a little bit of like a spat for saying that like more Black liberals and leftists need to like get involved with the church more, because it's true that like the church in Black culture in America specifically is kind of like where you get a lot of definitely older energy and community interaction, but also some younger as well. And penetrating that politically is important, but also like if you're someone like me who the church is a little bit of a sore spot for them growing up, like dramatically speaking, maybe that's not like the best place for you to start. But I think it's a good mindset, right? Like,
well, in terms of organizing, guarantee the church has a phone tree already.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're not 100% sincere, it's just kind of a front. They probably have some sort of food banking or charitable thing going on that you can build off. So if you want to organize and you live like where I do, if you look at Google Maps of the churches, there's like 10. There's hundreds down here. It's amazing. You'll be on a road, a long and lonesome road, no houses, shit, for like, 20 minutes, 3 churches easily. If you're in an area like that and you're in need of organizing, I don't know. That, like I said, they already know who everybody is. They meet once a week, right? Like they have meetings.
Maybe you set in through a couple to see, like, which ones may be the most amenable to the politics you want to like try to push forward. But
and when there's that many, they can't all be on the level. They're just getting the tax break or whatever it is. No taxes.
Yeah, like like I'm not going to get into it, but there was like a original wave of DSA organizing after Bernie ran in 2016 and again in 2020 that I was a part of for a little bit, especially during COVID, and then pulled back from because of some differences of like how certain people were running. Again, it's kind of like, how do you beat algorithms versus how do you organize on the street, sort of like argument that has wins and losses on both sides, right? I came more from the street side. There are people there who are like, well, I saw a YouTube video that says this, so therefore this is right, and without even talking to the people who are on the ground. So that was an unfortunate piece of all of that, but I still found like the ability to be able to kind of like what Zoran is doing and kind of like reaching out to certain neighborhoods and certain communities. Um just to be present there. Like the easiest thing you can do is a brake light clinic. Honestly, like especially in the streets, because one of the easiest ways for people to do like a driving while brown or driving while black type thing is like, oh, you got a busted taillight or whatever. Well, if you host something every like once a month, everyone knows where to go with this one certain car mechanic. It's good for the car mechanic because they get business. And then all you need to do is just post a little banner that says like, this is sponsored by your, Schuylkill County DSA. And like it's people will be sitting in line anyways, and you can talk to them about that if they're interested. You can see like, okay, why does an organization like this care about doing something like this? Well, there's racial, socioeconomic reasons. These are the things we care about. These are the things we stand for. And this is how it blends into other sort of issues. Like that is something that is going to resonate a lot more than, Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams making a slick video 4 months before election day. Like before the general election rather.
Right.
So it's that kind of politics that really works. And yeah, like I'm constantly thinking about like, we're in this period, to get like real heady about this, but like we're in this period where we're building media, but very soon, especially after like the off-year elections in September through November, this space, capital TP, is going to also have to be a place where people who are running for office see as valuable to come onto.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And see as like getting a place to, get their message out and get their word out. And, like maybe they don't get their word out, but they're able to practice their message. So if they go on like a show with a bigger platform, like no offense to all of us, but like, if they reach that point, like if they're on MSNBC where they may get more scrutiny and more criticism, they're able to like, duck the blows, hit some jabs a little bit, a lot better than if they were just doing that for the first time. And so like, it's, yeah. I know you're just based off of your reaction and I want you to jump in, but like, we're thinking about that. And I think that's like an important piece of like the next step of how we start to make this institutional.
Yeah. And we want all the candidates that are worth talking about, but we want all of the ones that the larger channels and platforms aren't talking about, so that those platforms can look at who we're talking to and go, oh, okay. It's not a vetting process, but it's like, and it's not an audition, but it's like, oh, now I know I have a resource for learning about all these other candidates who aren't getting on the larger platforms, but are happy to come on ours. And that makes them accessible to us. Right. So like we're all about promoting voices that aren't being heard. Like we really, really want to do that. While at the same time, we want to become a force where people are like, how do I get on this space? Like, I got to tell you, and this is wild because I didn't expect this to happen, but we kind of talked about maybe it could. In the last 2 weeks, I get emails every day saying, how can I be a part of this space? I want to contribute to this space. Now, some of those are like, I don't have a podcast currently. Is this space a place where I can test the waters? No, it's not. Sorry. But once you're testing those waters, we're not teaching, but you can learn from us, right? Because we have a lot of like, you don't have to be polished to be here. You don't have to meet some criteria to be in this space, right? At this moment, we just need to have room for people. We have to have the bandwidth to be able to manage it properly. But like, yeah, we see ourselves as I always say it's anything can happen, and we mean that in the best, in the most positive way. We see all these different avenues that we could end up going down. Yes, it was early on. We were like, well, kind of the only model we can compare ourselves or what we're trying to do. The only thing we can compare that to is the Young Turks. We know we definitely don't want to be a cable news network. We also don't want to be a radio program. What do we want to be? I don't know. Let's create something that's sort of based on those foundations, but can go in any direction and let the creators decide. And like, there was a day, I think it was last week, man, I don't know, it blurs, but there was like a Tuesday, which is our first day of the week for streaming. And I was just watching. I didn't contribute at all. That's some light producing in the background, but I was just watching and doing clips. And like, all the hosts were collaborating and working together. And I was like, no one planned this. It's so organic. It's just working. And that's exactly what I mean and there was like activism and advocacy and video games and really fun conversations, some minor debates about stuff that was very healthy. But like, holy shit, like this guy, how else would this guy get on screen with Benjamin Dixon? I don't know. I mean, I guess that could have happened, but it's a guarantee here, right? So it's really fun to watch it like run itself, and so early on. And that is a testament to, and this is what I came away with. It's a testament to a group of people who at any minute, like I could just be like, hey, so-and-so, can you fill this slot? Yes, I can be a broadcaster at the drop of a hat. At a moment's notice, I can fire up my camera and report on shit. And like, we didn't go to school for this. Like, where does this training come from? It's totally DIY, but it's also very fucking cool. Like, I really, really, really liked seeing it happen that one day, and it's been happening ever since. And so what happens after that? I don't know. It's just, if that's all it is, great. But I see big things happening.
Yeah, I hope big things happen. I'm definitely of like two minds about it. I have a lot of friends who are like very by the book in media, and they might like wince at your whole, oh, we don't have like formal training in this. And I think it's like, other than maybe like high school journalism, like I don't have formal training in this, but I opened up a book about like
dude, you're our Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, be careful, right? Because we're all like, there's a lot of Padawans around here who are like achieving status as we go along just based on experience. But you came with the experience before anybody else, any one of us got. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is why I'm always talking to you about in front of and behind the camera, those dynamics. But you were saying you opened a book.
No, yeah, but like, and I appreciate the flattery, but like I don't have that credibility to a lot of people, right? Like, there are a lot of people who worked in like newsrooms with Gothic lettering on them, right? Like, you know, like your Chicago Tribunes, your Washington Posts, your New York Times, your papers of record, right? The LA Times, right? Mm-hmm. And that reminds me of another like topic to talk about while we have some time, but like more on that in a moment. And to those people, like all I did was, you know, I wrote some articles for HuffPost. I worked at the Young Turks for a while. I made some TikTok videos. Like, that's not real journalism to them. And to me, I hold this sort of like double thing, because I see a lot of like AI slop, and I also see a lot of like, you know, hot people giving like ahigo eyes to the camera while describing the news. And like, there's,
and it's, you know, independent journalism or whatever. It's not. Yeah.
And again, like, you know, the Vanguard giving ahigo eyes while doing the news. Like, you know, like, how do you work the algorithm? Like, you know, I'll just leave y'all with that image to go to sleep with.
I was watching Alex Jones talk to somebody the other day. Somebody was showing it. I wasn't watching it. And Alex Jones just like is smoking. Have you seen this? And I'm just like, talk about giving up.
But have you watched Power Report?
No, but smoking a cigarette. Like, literally, like, I don't know. It just seemed to me like vaping is one thing, but like I don't know. It just seemed to me like that's literally like, I mean, I'm not preaching, but that's like a bad habit. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It
I mean,
just
no,
seems like it'd be easy enough not to do it.
so like,
I don't know.
there's I think this is like, the ultimate stones in glass houses here, but
Yeah.
when I hear all the stories about Pete Hegseth, I'm like, why, dude? Like, come on. Like, again, like, when I drink on PowerPoint, it's very similar to like how Zach was describing his approach to politics, which is like, I have a day job. This is me chilling at the end of the day. This is me like kind of taking the load off, like,
Just have a drink to unwind myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Like let's like, I think there's a balance to that, and I think there's a responsibility to that like I'm kind of focusing on more.
I'm still
but no. And shout out Sober Matt. But the like, I think there's one thing, and there's also Pete Hegseth, who was like, oh, if I become Secretary of Defense, I promise that's my fucking last drink. That's my last drink. That's like, there's definitely two. Yeah, there's two different sides to it.
It's
and
a
there's
sign. Yeah.
There's a side, and also like there's stakes, right? Like I love all the folks watching PowerPoint right now. I am nowhere near at this point to the levers of controls of power, and trust and believe if I'm ever that close, I will at least choose between the beer and the beatbox. I'll do one and not both. All right, like I'll do one and not both. Right, like that's the Dan from the internet guarantee right there. But like like Pete Hegseth, who's like, again, like the shakes, like if I get this position, that's my last drink, and then like first podium meeting taking
he had the brown stuff right under the podium.
Dude, I'm like, come on, man.
He didn't try and play it off like it was iced tea in a scotch glass, right?
Like at least a clear, dude. Like play it off, man. At least a clear.
Put it in a super big golf cup, like everybody at a PTA conference, right? Like, come on, right? Like, really hide that stuff.
Put it in a red Solo cup at that point, dude.
Yeah,
just like, come on. Just like, again, not to be all conservative, but I miss when we used to leave things to the imagination.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going with that.
Like, did Matt smoke pot before going on, or is this just how he is? Right? Like, I don't know.
I thought you were talking about Matt Leck for a moment.
Oh no, man. I'm going to send you a link after this for something I want you to watch, because there was a couple times tonight that you reminded me of something that I don't want to advertise to people, but I think you'll find it very intriguing. It's in line with what we've been talking about tonight. And I wonder if you know of this content creator or not, but I'll send it to you. But there's, I don't see, and that's a weird thing. Is like, I'm pretty much an open book on my channel. Like, I talk about just whatever, like, especially if it's members only. Like, I'll divulge all kinds of information, personal stuff. I don't care. But nobody really knows me. Isn't that funny? Like,
no, I get it.
Nobody could be like this, how you are in front of the camera all the time. Like, I'm pretty fucking boring, like, and grouchy all the rest of the time. It's like an hour a day, 2 hours a day. You know what I mean? A week sometimes. But like the rest of the time, distracted, not a good communicator. And here I am, like, divulging this stuff, like, the mystery or whatever. But I think that's true for everyone. I think people are always presenting in some way.
No.
Putting on a
there's
face, I guess.
There's a wonderful dynamic on Power Report where you can never tell exactly when Bam and C's and the other contributors actually hate me, versus whether they're just playing around with me on the show.
Well, when you're not there, that was them that took over that one time, right?
There's been a couple of times, like truly.
But like recently, there was a hilarious one where I think you were trying to like DM or text notes,
Uh,
giving them notes, and they
yeah,
were like, I don't know, I can't remember.
that may have
Those
been
guys are
Bam and
great.
C's. Yeah, that may have been Bam and C's. But yeah, no, like there's again, like I love the whole crew I have there because like it's we are fully our, and that's what brought me to TYT in the beginning, like not to be all living out here, but like I honestly felt when I joined until I left that the people you saw on screen were 90% or higher the same people who you would experience in real life.
Oh, okay.
The jank you saw on screen was like 90% true to form, the jank you would see in real life. If anything, the jank in real life is a little bit quieter. Believe it or not. He's a little bit softer spoken in conversation.
Not
But
like
you know,
more
you
in
could,
his head, more introverted, or
no. I mean, like, you know, like a literal like volume thing. Like if he's 12 on
oh,
if he's 12 on TV, he's maybe like a 5 or a 4. Like he's another person in a conversation most of the time. You would think like any room he walks into, he like lights up and just like starts 3 arguments, but like he's a good conversator.
I don't know. Now I'm
Yeah.
sitting here thinking like I'm probably a nicer person offline too, if you can believe that.
But I mean,
But I'm selfish with my time.
to your point about like thinking about yourself and who you really are, like yeah, no, there's reconciling with your faults offline as well, that, you know, similar things that I do as well. It's like being grumpy or like, you know, being like, you know, not thinking about certain other things that like, you know, my brain is thinking about Power Report or my day job and not thinking about how one of my good friends is like feeling right now in this moment, when I used to be like more supportive in that space. But you know, it's life. You try to balance all that stuff, you know.
Do you see how this space was the perfect name? Like so many people are like, I don't get the name, and it's like you're going to be hearing that everywhere because people
only
say
because
this space so much.
Well, only because like I'm a like again, I grew up in that like very liberal, like safe space, sort of like 2010s college era sort of thing. And so I don't use the word place, or, you know, I don't describe like this channel or this thing, because like I, as a good leftist, as the one true leftist, if you will, you know, I like to keep things nebulous, and whatever people come to it and whatever people treat it as, they get to call it whatever they want to. And I think space is the most, it's why I secretly start every show by saying hello humans.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's
it really is. It's like something people say when they're like, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. But you want to be as inclusive and broad as possible.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
purposely broad, not just like, you know, everyone, you know, like it's like the way you say folks versus like people.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're very intentional by being like, you want to be gender inclusive and you're not saying ladies and gentlemen, versus some people may not even be thinking that by saying folks or people. But you know, like you can't, it yes, Matt, it's a good name.
I know. A lot of people, like Andrea was like, I don't know about this name, I don't really like this name, and then it was just like she came right back after like a week and was like, that is a great name. This is a good name. Somebody told us to change it to this community space.
No.
And I was like, this does not roll off the tongue. I'm sorry. We're not doing that.
Like there's only so many like Nickelodeons that can exist in the world.
Right. Yeah, right. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, like yeah.
I can't think of another one. Actually.
Boomerang from Cartoon Network. It always comes back to you.
Man, don't get me going. I've been watching a lot of animation. I'm like, once I go down that road, it's like, uh-oh. Gonna watch all the G.I. Joes.
So this was the, you know, you get to give you Christina of the show. So, you know, show your tits. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I, I wanted to ask you more about the entertainment sort of thing, and that like there's been, you know, I think this has been the biggest week of living out as far as like media goes for a while, in the sense of like CBS is fighting against Stephen Colbert, and while everyone's saying that, like, you know, I didn't really like Stephen Colbert on the Late Show, he kind of like, you know, watered down himself in the Colbert Report, and I'm like, yes, but obviously, because the Late Show is an institution, and that's something where like you kind of fit into the mold and you try to do your own thing with it. It's not like he couldn't bring the Colbert Report to the Late Show. I think it would have been cool, but I also think it would have crashed out like Conan did. So it's just like, it's a different audience and you have to respect that. And I think Colbert, like, you know, fit the shoes in the best way he can. Also, talking about Stephen Colbert, my opinions, huge conflict of interest. Don't listen to me on that. Like, I really shouldn't be speaking about him too much. But that's just kind of like my opinion. But like, also, if I seem to be kind of like defensive of him, like take that for what it is. But you know, the way that he is not just announced that he is getting canceled by CBS and has doubled down on the Trumpian reasons why, but now you're seeing Jon Stewart double down. Stephen Colbert doubled down, Jon Stewart quadrupled down, and then South Park like octupled down with their like latest episode. And yeah, I bring this question up to you because well, we're talking about animation as we get into South Park, but and we're talking about, you know, like the media industry and all those other different things there. You can take it in whatever direction you want to, especially with like how animation is going at this time. But I've just found it very interesting how you're seeing something that's like nascent in American culture, which is that left, right, center, we all trust our creators a lot more than our politicians, full stop.
Yeah.
And so like,
yeah,
you could easily convince some like anyone from an armchair anarchist to you know, CNN centrist to be like Stuart Colbert 2028, and we'd probably do like a Reagan style landslide. Like, I'm kind of over exaggerating, but like barely. Like, just like there's something energizing about seeing the First Amendment being weaponized in the way that the right wing always claims the left is actually weaponizing the First Amendment. But like, this is the first week it's actually happening, where like Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart, and the South Park guys are all kind of guns blazing in their own ways against the Trump regime and everything that it stands for, and its attempts to try to like tamp down those First Amendment rights. So yeah, I mean, you're the creative. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think that it gets less creative the more corporate it is, right? And I think that what Colbert was doing wasn't necessarily, I think he was very much working into formula that he had established and that Letterman had established. But, you know, Colbert was doing the Colbert Show. And I think any real creative type or artist would have a desire to change and grow and evolve that and do something different. And so to be canceled could be a blessing in disguise. It's messed up what they're doing, because like it's one thing to be outright fascist. It's another thing to cave to fascism, right? Because it's like that playing it safe is not safe. You're just paving the way. This is why we always say, like, you know, centrism leads the way or paves the way for fascism, right? Like, because you just didn't do anything. You didn't create a resistance or an opposition. So I like that that this is a moment where people can be outraged. Personally, it's like, well, he's like a multimillionaire, right? He'll be fine. So like, don't get too sensitive about it. Don't get too
when people are protesting side. When people are protesting outside of CBS, I'm like, listen, I'm trying to grow. I'm doing my own personal growth. So like I'm gonna assume that at least 25 out of the 100 people protesting outside of CBS have also been to like a No Kings protest, or like have also been to an ICE protest,
Right.
or like maybe 5 out of 100 of them have done mutual aid. But like for everyone else who hasn't, like
There's a
again, like
lot
what
of
you're saying, like yeah, let's just be
like
clear here. This
it,
should not be the thing that mobilizes you.
right. Yes, that's my point. And there's a lot of this is probably mostly online. But I think that when it comes to progressives, we have a tendency, and I talk about this a lot. We have a tendency to fantasize the rest of the story to suit our own politics or wishes and desires. Like, and Tim Walz is the ultimate example, because when Harris picked Walz as her running mate, we were like, yes, the progressive choice. And we were, and then it was like the next moment we were all like, oh, that was to shut us up. And look, now they're not giving him a platform, right? But then some people were still running with it. Like, no, this is a good thing. It's like VPs don't have that much sway once elected. You know what I mean? Like, why are we building this up? James Gunn and Superman. So people are coming away from that like, holy shit. Oh, that was supposed to be Israel. That was supposed to be Palestine. And I was like, I came out of there and not once was I like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what the anti-colonizer rhetoric is going to be, or commentary is going to be about. There was none of that in there. There was no armed resistance. There was no they didn't show the flag of the oppressed. They made a Superman flag. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's like we're reading into it. Yes, it was anti-billionaire. Yes, it was pro-immigrant and refugee. I get all that. But it wasn't like anti-billionaires. You know what I mean? It wasn't like all billionaires suck. It was like, no, this guy's just a psychopath. He's evil. We got to get rid of him, right? So that is, I don't know. It's like, just, I'm using it as an example of how the left has a tendency to build things up and like, hey, flood the zone, right? I mean, if the right is going to use Superman to stay in the algorithm, let's do that too. And let's put these issues in the spotlight for, quote unquote, normies to say, oh, there's a conflict. What's this about? Oh, it's a genocide. Oh, I get it. I like that movie. I'm anti-genocide too. Hey, if that works, great. I also hope that a superhero movie gets more people into comic shops. I might not happen, you know what I mean? But like there's all these like byproducts that I'm here for. But let's be real. You articulated it perfectly a moment ago, and I'm already forgetting the words, but like, this shouldn't be the thing that activates you or radicalizes you. But if it is, great. But I would hope that it's like the real world shit that's going on. They're trying to make us dumber. They're trying to make us broke. They're trying to make us unhealthy. They're taking away all the resources for science, medicine, education, jobs, right? Like wages. They are just coming after us from all angles. And if somebody's like, did you see what they're doing to Colbert? I'm like, is this what we're talking about? I mean, yeah, I saw it, but like, is this part of a greater conversation?
Well, like I so resonate with this because I talk about lib versus left, like building things over, and also talk about like some of the news we're talking about even this week. Even though this is an uncharacteristic power report, what's more podcasty than news describing, but honestly, I think these are more valuable at these times sometimes. In these times is also a good name of a podcast that is already taken. So shout out to them.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, absolutely. We should definitely this space should definitely have them on in some capacity.
Yeah.
But
contacts there.
Excellent. But yeah, my mind's buzzing in business things. So I want to get back to the conversation in my brain.
Yeah.
But there's going back to that point of, I remember the Cory Booker filibuster where there are a lot of people who are like, I love how this is happening. And they're like all the same people who loved West Wing. And like, don't get me wrong.
It's a storybook moment or something.
Yeah. Like West Wing was like a little bit before my time. but Aaron Sorkin's writing hit me with the newsroom, especially as like I was getting pilled into this world and like back when I thought there was hope. But I was mad into, you know, that sort of idealistic stuff. And so I have friends right now who are, part of this is related to their jobs, but neither here nor there. The big thing that is getting them to like post and be motivated about what's going on right now with the Trump administration is like the cuts to NPR funding, for example. And not to do the leftist thing of like oppression Olympics, but I'm like, okay, where were you when NPR and PBS were kind of both sizing the quote unquote Israel-Palestine conflict?
Or like every time Barack Obama, the actual president, said something, they would say, Donald Trump says this. Oh, and by the way, he's nobody. He's on reality TV. Like, why are you talk about both sidesing? Like, oh my God.
False subjectivity, yeah.
Yeah, we should be like raging against these guys a lot. But here we are going, no, save them. For what? I don't know.
And, like I ultimately like, because here's the deal, like, it's a maturity sort of thing. I forget exactly how I was going to bounce off of this, but like we've had so many moments in this conversation where that comes off of. But like, as a leftist, I think you have to sort of be like, oh, Epstein's your line, not the other shit.
Or,
okay,
or
cool.
like, or like, oh, did you see they released more photos of Trump and Epstein together? And I'm like, we already had them. That wasn't enough. Like we have, okay, now we have more. What about the ones we had? I don't get it. Like, this isn't working.
Yeah, weird. It's like, yeah, you have a bunch of like, it's performative we started the Vanguard conversation with like electeds, media, and voters as like a very crude, like, pyramid of a hierarchy here. And for voters to be like, I think the media and the electeds might be lying to us. And for the media to pretend to be able to say, I think the electeds are lying to us. Like, it's a very, Noam Chomsky is as giddy as he can possibly get in his age right now. Like, I think, yeah.
Well, I just on that, I wish everyone could just suddenly have, like, I don't know. I'm making this sound like I'm some mad scientist who's going to shift everyone's brain at the same time, like a Twilight Zone episode. But I wish everyone could somehow, whether it's from a movie or a talk show host getting canceled, I wish everyone could come to the understanding that your elected leaders, quote unquote leaders, public servants, as they're supposed to be, but really aren't, that these are people who need to fight with us, not for us. And when they say, I'm going to Congress to fight for you, that's a bullshit line. But if they said, I'm going to Congress so that we can continue to fight for this and this and this, and now we're talking, right? We don't need champions. We need, like I was saying before, we're always building the commune, right? Who can garden? We got to be sustainable, right? Like, we're not going to have plumbing in the woods. We need compostable outhouses. Who knows how to do that, right? Like, this is what we need in public servants and elected officials, not somebody who's going to go to Congress because Congress is hard and my baby brain doesn't understand it. So we need a guy in a suit to go figure it out. Like, that is not, this is what people think of when they think of leaders and champions and heroes, and it's totally wrong. It shouldn't be any of that.
I love what you said there, and I want to like
about the compostable outhouses. I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, don't get me started about some of my friends and their proclivities towards sustainability. I'm going to leave that there before I get into like, listen, Vanguard is nothing compared to the beef that I was about to start just now with one of my friends who may be watching.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I'm not touching that, but no, just this whole idea that like, that's what, in the Amy Goodman kind of way, that's what gives me hope, in the sense that politics is so easy. Like, we're all overcomplicating it. you and I both too.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, I had a post, and like, this is why I'm starting to tighten up a little bit, because like, oh, I could run for president off of this, and like, I would win. But I had a post a while ago that was like, if I ran for office, president, whatever, dog catcher, and I said, I'm anti-Epstein and pro-Luigi, and if I just refuse to answer any other question for my entire campaign, I would win in legendary amounts.
If you just went with that.
If I was like, like, people are shouting out Zoran Mamdani, who, let me just do this hot take right now as I'm doing this aside while I'm remembering this.
Not
Zoran
a
Mamdani, not a socialist, but also Zoran Mamdani's best day of his life has already passed. Once you are the mayor of New York City, you are villain number one of New York City. And that's not a partisan thing. That just happens when you are the mayor of a large city. Everything becomes your fault. Everything you promise to do that you can only do at best 85% of the way, at worst 35% of the way, that's your fault. Like,
Are you saying enjoy it while it lasts, or
I'm saying,
is he up for this? I mean, what do you think?
I don't think this is an indictment on Zoran, honestly, because I don't
Okay.
want to like be one of those leftists who's like, let me take some wind out of some sails, right? Like, let's have some hope, let's have some dreams here for sure. But like, let's also be rational that like there's a risk in propping up Zoran as like, this is the future of the party,
Right.
when the mayor of New York City is the worst job in America. Like, I rarely do superlatives without some type of like equivocating, but like it like Democrats, and God, I hate this because I'm about to do a bit that I love to do on Power Report, but in the worst way possible. But here goes. In defense of Rudy Giuliani, Democrats were blaming 9/11 on him. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, come on, man. Like, okay. Like, come on. Like, if it's a pothole, it's Rudy's fault. If it's a pothole in the Twin Towers, I don't know. Let's have an investigation.
What about national security? Or like, hello, what about Intel? And I mean, what do you expect from that? But I see your point. Yeah.
And Rudy Giuliani definitely rode that like America's mayor thing all the way to, the landscaping company that he did in 2020. That was kind of funny. But like this always sticks out to me. During the George Floyd protests, NYPD arrested Bill de Blasio's daughter, Mayor Bill de Blasio's daughter. They caught her up for like no reason. And when asked, NYPD's response was, say something. They're like, yes, and? Their response was, okay, you be popping off all that good shit about defund the police, Mr. de Blasio, but we own you. We're the NYPD. Okay? So like, God forbid, I don't want any harm to come to most politicians. Definitely not Zoran Mamdani, right? But like, being the mayor of New York City, you can be doing the best job ever, and I guarantee you DSA is going to be pissed at him. I guarantee you some online leftists are going to be pissed at him. I guarantee you some online leftists who are just not always pissed off at everything, but are actually kind of principled are going to be like, because it happened to AOC. It happens with Ilhan Omar. It happens with, she's like, it's going to happen, but like, let's accept that like, these are the limits of electoralism. And there is a benefit to having someone who is like 80, even like AOC, like a 75% to our ideology versus this constant bitching and moaning cycle, which again gets views. I'm not going to talk about anyone, but a lot of people have made videos this week because AOC made another like dumb voting decision that no one's going to fucking remember or care about in like 2 weeks, but they've gotten a lot of views off of it. And these are perfectly fine people who do great work. But like, this goes back to that thing we were talking about we are going to always be up against this thing where even if 10 of us leftists come into a collective and saying we're above this one thing, one person's going to be like, okay, suckers, I'm about to get 200,000 views off of this joint.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, you're right. I get it. And I think there's a place for everything. Here's how I look at it. Do you ever watch that? It's an older show, Penny Dreadful. Did you ever watch that?
Mm.
It's like, Dracula, Frankenstein, but real light. It was great. It was great. There's a character, the main character is, pretty
old show. It's just 2014. Don't date yourself, man.
Well, I mean, the way stuff comes out now, but anyway, it stands up. I've watched it all recently, all the way through, but there's a moment where the main character has evidence that she's possessed, and she goes to a priest, and the priest is like, well, I think most of these things can be solved with medicine and therapy. And she's like, no, it's pretty bad. And he goes, so you're religious? And she goes, yeah, I'm religious. And he goes, so you believe that, Jesus is the savior and will died for your sins? She's like, yeah. But I also believe in demons and all that stuff too. The dark side that we talk about in religion. He's like, oh yeah. Okay. Well, check this out. So I guess you're looking for an exorcism. And she goes, I think so. And he goes, well, how about this? Being touched by a demon is like being backhanded by God. And now you've been touched by God. So now you have this heightened sense of reality. Are you sure you want the exorcism? Because you're walking around better than everybody else in a sense. And so like you can take your affliction, even if we choose to be streamers, whatever that means, right? And like sometimes it's slop, and sometimes it's red meat, and sometimes it's veggies, and sometimes it's a dud, right? Like it's too boring. Don't do that again.
Oftentimes it's a dud.
Well, and so like, you use all of that not to bail and exorcise the demons. You use all that stuff to walk around with this heightened perception of being online. So you're not just on Twitter. You're not just using Facebook. You stream. You are presenting, right? And so I think like there's a way to capitalize off of all of the bad parts and all the negative stuff. And so if, especially in a collective, if one person just wants to do the slop, okay, we definitely have room for that, right? Like get the clicks, get the views, whatever you got to do, or whatever you want to do. It is what it is, even though I hate that expression. But I do think that there's a way that people can look at the world, whatever it is you're doing, streaming, whatever the hell, to, if like I was in the corporate world for a long time and it was brutal, but then these new people would come along and they weren't galvanized. They were soft. They didn't have the dents and they weren't war torn. They hadn't been on the front lines, but I had. And now I can use that to make their experience easier, and I can use that to make my day-to-day easier because I know the pitfalls to look out for. I can put things in place to make sure this whole thing runs better. It's just whether or not it's worth it to you. And so I think what we're doing here, like what you and I do and people like us do, it's worth it. And we have to keep doing this. I mean, the Democrats are trying to put together a network of podcasters instead of investing in ads. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
They literally they said, we want an echo chamber called the Bullhorn. And I was like, you guys suck.
Dude,
like
the bulwark is already there.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it would be easier to just
probably are going to be a part of this. I don't know.
It would be easier to just do an aqua hire, but like they're not going to do it. Yeah. No, like, yeah. Now we're getting to business, but yeah, it's like, yeah,
but if you've been backhanded by God, that's the same as being touched. And I guess don't rush out and get an exorcism. Think about it.
I like that. Penny Dreadful on Netflix and Showtime, and also Amazon. I see.
It's awesome.
That's on my list. But yeah, I think like, I always feel I feel like I get older by the week every single day. But like there was a level of media literacy that I'm just not sure how we're able to present. Like even the best of us are able to impart onto other folks about like the whole controversy with the Nelk Boys interviewing Benjamin Netanyahu on their Full Send podcast.
Yeah.
And I think there's, not at all parallels between what I was talking about with Vanguard, but sort of the whole like, what is content versus like, what does this content do? And Adam Friedland said it very well, like, not everything has to be content. And I think it's balancing that, but also balancing the fact that, like, how do we get audiences to understand the literacy of like what are the differences between all these things, and how we can be like, okay, the Nelk Boys saying that we just like different opinions and we're obviously stupid, but we'll still interview people and give them a weak ass interview, and that is somehow acceptable because of this like realm of free speech that has been created by the right wing, versus I think like a whole point of this conversation, the whole like 3-hour show, has been like, we have abilities to be able to get things to be seen by a lot of people, and we have an urgency to make sure that our ideas are spread out, and that we're in this world where, again, you don't have to run a political party. You can run on some memes. Like, I'm pro Luigi and anti Epstein, and I'm an independent, and that's gonna get you at least 5% from anywhere from dog catcher to governor if you start your campaign early enough. I would put money. I'm not going to, but I would put money on that. That like, if you just get one single issue on that, like, you can really go far. But like, it's always that balance of how much are we willing to pull the lever of our integrity versus how much are we willing to pull the lever of back in the other direction of when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, and these are really serious times. We need to really like get at the seriousness of these times and meet it with that force that's necessary. And so we need to like recruit candidates. We need to look past petty differences. Like, I look towards like the Black Panthers and all that other different stuff, and like the discipline they had even across different coalitions that didn't always get along, because they all were able to focus on a certain vision. And the cynical part of me is like, tech has fucked us too good, especially with AI grok girlfriends now, for us to be able to like get on the same page with things. Give me hope, Matt.
No, look, we're inspiring. This is another thing I like to say a lot. Everyone needs to fire up a webcam, get some sort of a mic and headphones, and start doing this. Everyone needs to have this attitude that, look, you're already doing it, taking pictures of yourself and putting it on Instagram all the time and Facebook. We've been doing this for a long time now. We need to be focused, and we need to have a message. Whatever it is you think you want to say, I guarantee when you do it live on air, you're going to realize you could have said it differently. You could have said it better. You could have communicated it in a manner in which it would have been received properly, right? You're going to start to refine. That is the benefit to this. It's not ad revenue, right? That is the bonus. That's what comes after people realize, oh, you give a shit about what you're saying. Now, the algorithm will have you believe something a lot differently, and that's where it feels hopeless. But I think the reality of the situation is there are more people getting online who are trying to be better communicators, who are saying, if I can learn from a podcast, I can communicate and teach with a podcast, right? And it's not like I fancy myself a teacher. I am, but it's not like I fancy myself someone who's going to inform and teach everyone. No, I'm going to show you how I'm learning as I go to read the news, process the news, not get overwhelmed by the news, how to remain engaged without being like defeated by the constant barrage of news, like how to not cherry pick, but be focused and isolate the articles and the stories and the outlets that matter, so that you can have conversations with people where you can point them to the resources you use to get this frame of mind, to believe in this political issue or policy or whatever it is. So like that's as hopeful as I can be. And I think that it's also reality, which is should be refreshing to you. But like the more people do this, the more they will learn to be communicators. Even the people who are communicating the slop, they figured that out. They mastered that. That's not easy. I mean, it feels like it's easy, but it's kind of not, right? Like I've had a video that was like, whoa, holy shit, that went over 100,000. Maybe I could do that more. Apparently not. Right? Like I can't. Like I've tried. I can't. I even got called out for making clickbaity stuff, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So you know,
That's
what
how you know
mean?
you've
Like,
made it, honestly.
yeah, right. I know. Yeah, it was a real milestone. Like I printed out those comments and framed them, but I didn't. But you see what I'm saying? Like,
Listen. I have
it's
printed out
communicating.
tweets and framed them, so you're not above it. It's fine.
I just want it to be. I want live streaming to be the new. I have a Twitter account. That I really want that, and so you will have people who hit it big and they have all the followers and all the views and subscribers and all that, and then you just have like a bunch of people who are a part of the conversation, because it should be, as we go forward, it should be less about individuals leading the way and the amount of people in the fight. That should be the key. Strength in numbers has never been more valuable than tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That's what I think.
That's really smart. Like I love the idea. Like I was originally not necessarily sold because I'm like, is Matt making the case for more podcasts? Is Matt making the case for more men talking on screen?
Everybody reaches one or two people, then we've reached everyone.
And that's kind of where I came back around to it, which is like, that doesn't mean like you do all the infrastructure to like have an RSS feed and like stream every Thursday, right? But like, you know, there's a lot of room. That's kind of like what I was getting to earlier, and to wrap up because we're at super time. But everyone has their own communities they can reach out to, and there's such a vacuum that has been left by local news shrinking and leaving, and regional news and regional coverage and journalists getting like, you know, removed from different beats and stuff, right? Like there's so much stuff that we can start to actually fill. Like there's so much of a void that people on the left can actually fill. And so I think like the way I extend the way Matt described that is like, if there used to be a local newspaper for like you and the 5 towns in either direction around you, and that's not there anymore, then you get to be that if you want to.
Right.
And I would hope that you read like, you know, maybe not like the Chicago style guide, but you know, like some general like Columbia journalism review, like ethics sort of things. Like don't write shit that didn't exist. Like, you know, basic ethics and stuff like that. But we need people who are able to build trust in their communities and are able to communicate effectively for things. And also, just to be blunt about it, like to do it from a left perspective, because there are going to be people who don't care about ethics who will do it from the right, and they will completely jump into that. And we've got to fight that to show that there's a different way that isn't just, oh, I'm doing this partisan because we need to have left media as well, but also like, no, we're doing this way because we trust people to be able to make their own decisions, and the right decisions are the ones that are coming from the left of the conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and if you're, you know, real new and amateur, find somebody to look up to who already does it. Model yourself after them. See if, like, you know, I asked Dan questions early on and he was helping me out, and then along the way I check in with him. You know, this is real. I'm kind of speaking to the chat now, but like that way you have real life people that you rely on and look up to, and not just fictional characters. Like the fictional heroes are great for escapism and like telling stories and learning to, you know, communicate, but like the hands-on stuff is only going to be in the real world. And so it grounds people at the same time as it gives you a new outlet. I think that's, it's exciting. It's, I've seen people, like, I'm watching people do it because I'm looking at a lot of like new smaller channels, and I am a new small channel. So what does that tell you? But like, I'm looking at them and I'm like, there's no need to jump in here and tell them they're doing it wrong or it could be done different, because I can see they're already on the path of realizing that. Right? They're like, oh, I'm going to figure this out. That's awesome. I don't know how you're doing that, but
I have a standing desk, and
like
now I'm
movie
sitting.
magic. Oh, I see. Awesome. That is the end of the show. Dan has taken a seat.
No, yeah, I'm gonna stay on a little bit longer because apparently
Okay.
there's gonna be a raid from this space and Leftist
Oh,
Mafia. Shout out
wow.
to them, but usually I end the show by rating Jack. I forget her full
Riverboat
title.
Jack.
Riverboat Jack, yes.
I'm a fan.
She's great, and she's also been doing some incredible, like, honestly, like, there's Dan from the Internet slash and burn coverage of TYT. There's Vanguard slash and burn coverage of TYT, and then there's Riverboat Jack's surgical strike coverage of TYT, where she really like digs in deep and goes into the clips, and like, no, she's very, very good. I want to shout as many people out to her as I possibly can.
Yeah, and she goes for a long time. Like sometimes like 8 hours, I think, right?
Oh no, she's figured it out because she does the death slot that no one else wants to do. She's got graveyard shift.
Yeah, right. It's not even like I was looking at like a swing shift, like 10 to 10. There's too much competition in that. You can't do that.
You're talking to the guy who like continues to deliberately do a show at the same time as Leftist Mafia.
Well, that's bold. And I should tell you, like, people are so grateful to see both of those replayed on this space. They're like, I didn't have time to watch it, and I wouldn't have had time to watch both, or any way to watch both, right? Like, you'd have to be a sicko like me where you can have 4 of these things going at one time. But like, and it's just a volume thing. Just a volume.
Yeah. And we've done some cross streams before. So again, like, I love especially like, there's been a lot of crossover with Lance from the Surfs and Rational National and David Doyle. I want to say that maybe it was David Doyle, or maybe like, I forget exactly who, but that was how Riverboat Jack and I first met. There was like a panel show that was like a long time ago, like almost like pre-COVID or like slightly post 2020.
Oh, is that Humanist Report?
No, there was a special, like, different, it wasn't Humanist Report, but it was like a special panel show that I forget what it was called. And it was like a one-off that one of them did. But anyways, shout out to all of them. I've literally most of my booking issues are because guests are either like, oh, this time this guest is on Leftist Mafia, or oh, this time this guest is on Power Report. Like, sometimes I've gotten to steal Matt Bender's, but usually Matt Bender is on Leftist Mafia, so it happens. But either way, like, no, like, I love that because there's truly like there's no competition. It's very much like how you're seeing all of the late night show hosts in the audience for Colbert. Like, they're all showing up.
Yeah, right.
For like, sure, it's fun to compete, but at the end of the day, there's no competition. It's all like, how can we unite our audiences and get them activated? Because ultimately, like, I don't care how big or small my audience is, which is kind of what makes me dangerous, and also what, like, maybe doesn't help me grow as much. But the main thing is that I want, if you're someone like Matt who is able to watch like 4 shows at once, that outside of that time, outside of pervert time, you're able to like go out into the world and take the things you've learned from these different shows, and take the long boring segments from wonky experts on the Majority Report and Hassan Piker going into tangents that are even longer than mine, describing different things, and like whatever Cosmopolitics is talking about, whatever Riverboat Jack is talking about, whatever like all these other great channels are doing. talk to other people in your communities about this stuff. Like,
Right.
use your knowledge. I don't mean to say weaponize it as in like beat people over the head with it, but like use that to your advantage and start to like, again, I'm using bad words like indoctrinate, but like, no, actually, the right wing thinks of it like indoctrination. The left wing needs to do indoctrination for good. Like, the right wing is like, let's normalize fascism. And the left is like, let's normalize community and loving each other and working together. And like, if you've got to use those same tactics for love instead of division, listen, I'm no pastor. Go to Pastor Ben to figure that out ethically, but like, I say go for it.
I love when there's a bunch of shows on all at once. I think that's great. Flood the airwaves. So I did Monday nights because I was like, there's one other show on at that time. And at first I was like, and they're on the left or whatever. I'm not going to call them out, but I didn't really like them. And I have my reasons.
Sam.
No, it was, I mean, we're talking like PM, right?
I'm
like
kidding.
Monday
I'm
night.
kidding.
And at first I was like, oh man, they're getting all the views. And then I was like, no, I'm taking 26 views away from them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm taking 30 views away from them. Like, I'm giving
That's what
people an option.
What you can do was talking about, like, know, your position is not necessarily to be the views king. Your position is to be the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, and the option on Monday night to that one other guy who said, this is shade, but he said, I don't know if I want to say, yeah, I'll say, he said going on Joe Rogan was on his bucket list. And I was like, that's gross. Because it was at a point where we all knew what the deal was. Are you trying to think?
Don't be so mean to no.
You don't know. But at the time I was like, it's not competition. It's an option. That's what it is. And that's how we all need to look at it. It's not a competition. If it is a healthy competition, by all means, that's fine. Let's do it. Let's boost each other's ratings with some spirited debate, some healthy competition, some who's gonna log off first. You know what I mean? Like, who's gonna go the longest here? Oh, that guy's starting a half hour early. What's up with that? Right? Like, who cares? Like, do that. But like, it's not a competition in terms of I need to end them. I must put them out of their misery. Like, don't do that. We just need more options. I think it's good.
Yeah. That's helpful for me to hear as well, because I've definitely been in that time to kill.
Right. Right.
In a number of different moments. But yeah, like
dude, I love that you brought up progressive voice earlier, because look, I could not get him to come on my show. And he just didn't do it. Right. He's like, I don't do that. And I was like, but you've had people on your show, so I'll keep asking, right? Because he understands the benefits of having a guest. So I said, I was in his chat and I was like, I would love to get progressive voice on my show, because he like said hi to me in the chat. And I said, I would love to get progressive voice on my show sometime for an interview. Could be brief. And he goes, yeah, no, I don't do that. And that was the last I ever heard from him on the topic. And I was like, wow, publicly shot me down. But
yeah,
he's a great guy.
I get the sense that that
he
was
definitely
what
put
he
himself through college, right?
Yeah,
With
I'm not
YouTube.
sure if that's I'm not no, I'll put it like this. I get the sense that ever since his YouTube era, he has become a lot more private and focused on his own things. That was like, I think even for me, I need to be humble a little bit for the fact that like the thing I did and how I probably came off when I was like a young YouTuber who knew nothing what was going on, but happened to get recognized by like Vice and TYT and HuffPost and stuff like that for certain things I was doing. Like, I probably came off like a little bit of like as an asshole. And like I also similarly like faded into like obscurity and not wanting to be noticed. I think I had a conversation with him maybe a couple of years ago, and the sense I get from him is that he has matured a lot since then, and his focus and approach towards politics is less about, you know, the YouTube drama and what political commentator said what about what, and it's more about, you know, the aspirational things we care about politics, like public policy and those sort of things. So yeah, I just don't think his mind is in the YouTube space that much anymore. There I go.
Well, I
again with
don't know.
this.
I mean, I don't know where he was ever, because I think when he had something to say, he would say it. I don't think he
I
was
do. I just
gaming
am
it,
protecting
right?
his peace. I do.
Well-
I just like he
okay.
he wants to be a private person, I think.
I mean, there was
Yeah.
one time I drew, when I was just drawing pictures of people on Twitter, I drew a picture of him, you know, a cartoon. And he didn't say anything. He didn't retweet it. He didn't like it, anything like that. And I did it a couple more times. And I think it was like the third or fourth time, because now it's like, I'm just going to try and get him to engage with me. Right. And like on the third or fourth time, he just commented, "Cool, bro." And I was like, okay, this guy does not care. That's so awesome. Like, he is punk rock.
He's
right?
too
Like, he
cool for
doesn't
all
give
of
a
us. Yeah. Yeah. All of us
we
out
got
there, you
raided
know.
by somebody here.
Yeah.
This
I think it was by this space. I'm bad at keeping track of all these things. I'm going to be even worse because this is my last episode streaming with my good computer for a while.
Oh, I think
so-
YouTube should make more of a big deal about it.
Yeah, like there should be something in the chat for sure. But yeah, thanks. We usually get a raid from Leftist Mafia, someone who's streaming it, either Bender or someone else. Shout out Looney Tunes, who is also a good steward of making sure I'm aware of that. And then yeah, I think we got the space raid as well.
You know, we
But-
have a holiday for him, right? LT9K Day,
No.
February 7th. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I love that's in February.
That guy mods so many different chats, and he takes it very serious. He's been like, Sandy Lovis was the very first mod I ever had, but now I'm over 1100, and he is still like really, really, really going strong. Just he's the man. So we made a holiday to him. It's 2 years old. It's called LT9K Day, February 7th.
Man, I love that.
No, awesome.
I love a good February day, honestly. Yeah, shout out LT9K. Really appreciate your stuff. I'm gonna start to like set things up to wind down because I gotta like go into YouTube and do the whole.
I have to
setup.
go, actually. I
Oh
do
yeah,
have-
you super gotta go. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
traveling tomorrow through Sunday evening, so I do have to bail.
Oh man, you're so gracious to even stay this long. So I'm sorry.
I'm having
but-
fun. I love this. I love this stuff.
No, so everyone knows what to find John Strackbite. Old heads know that joke. Old heads know that
The
joke.
deep cut.
Yes. Everyone knows where to find Matt Strackbine. And you know, the Space TV, everything that's going, like, you know, if anything, this show was a celebration of the left. So like follow Power Report,
Yeah.
follow everyone on the left. There's a bunch of people in chat who have
Please do.
channels. Follow them too. I think that's kind of the ultimate say here is that like this is truly a power is within you episode, and like this is a case where like the power is within everyone on the left, and most importantly, the power is within Delta Seat 13B, which Matt will be sitting in tomorrow
Right.
morning to charge his laptop and watch the latest season of Love Island.
It's one of those things. I don't even know what that is, but since I'll be on a plane, I probably will find out. There's so many things you find out about when you leave your house.
You're
Like
good.
commercial
don't worry about it.
television.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No, but yeah, Matt, thank you for moderating. As we alluded to in that conversation, it's been a long time coming, and a lot of patience coming, and I appreciate that from you and also from everyone involved. Again, thanks to Zach for coming on, and yeah, we will. It seems like people really like this sort of like, you know, interviewee podcast sort of thing, and I've been wanting to do this style of PowerPoint for a while. So noted to that for
Do it
later.
more.
But yes,
Yeah, definitely.
take care, man. Have a good time.
Thank
Have a
you
good
very
night.
much. All right.
Have a safe
See ya.
travels too. All right. Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna stick here for a little while longer. I'm gonna honestly set up the stream so that we can get to Riverboat over here. But yeah, I am very thankful for that conversation, that meeting, sort of like all that happening. 9:19 p.m. Wow, that's happening soon. Yeah, I'm thankful for that conversation. I'm thankful for that moment. Thankful for Zach for taking time out. Like, we all have lives. We all have things we're working on. It's busy, it's complicated out here. And so I'm very thankful for everyone for taking the time. Look, like, there's a lot going on in the world that's way more important than petty beefs that I've had. That said, I think there are fewer people in the world who are protecting and keeping a watch on some of these beefs in the English world, especially in the United States, than the online left. And so it's a space I care about. It's a space I lose sleep about. It's a space I've sacrificed personal friendships for because of how important I think it is to move this thing forward and keep it going in a healthy way. And just as much as folks like Looney Tunes in the chat and Pinkerbell, who's always here, Left the Box, Bad Lefty, Mono, Cat, who I gotta think about, Donald James, like Greg, Jamad, Sachi, who's usually here, but I gave him the night off because he obviously deserves it. But like, you know, Greg, Tracy, Come Here Now, Beach 89, like all the folks who come in through here, I truly thank you for your time and your devotion to this sort of moment and this movement. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we're all we've got. So we've got to hang in there, make sure we've got each other, but also make sure we keep each other accountable and do so in a way that's productive. And let's hold that quote in our minds. Even when we're fighting along with our leftist allies, you know, adversaries, etc., as long as they're acting in good faith, let's always try to build more than we're destroying. Because the power is always within you, and you can use that to build or you can use that to destroy. And I think it is most productive right now to build what we can, because everything we build ends up being something we can destroy in the right way. All right. Y'all got a lot of power report. I appreciate us. I appreciate you. We're doing the damn thing out here. And I'm going to head out. Thank you, everyone watching on this space. Thank you for everyone who is watching Leftist Mafia. We got a great interview that you can check out earlier, so please do that. And yeah, I hope this was a lesson in how you can do conflict resolution. So thank you. The power is always within you. And Riverboat Jack will be next on YouTube and Twitch. I'm going to redirect to both once I end the stream. So thank you. And Amy Goodman, what's it about?
Thank you, President Trump. Now I'm going to buy some mother F bleep guns.